RotoGrinders, happy Monday. Dean here, as well as Keith Eister's Eyes. It's about 24 hours. Actually, no, like 22 hours till the trade deadline's officially done. So I believe it's tomorrow around 3 or 4 o'clock on the East Coast. Myself and Keith, we've yet to be traded. RG is looking for a rebuild. We mentioned that maybe I'm on the move. We'll see. I got my bags packed. I got my phone on the ready just in case. I might have to step out mid-show. That'd be an awkward time to do it. You think you could do it after the show, but we'll see. Get one more in on the ledger. But yeah, trade deadline stuff's going down. I don't think this is trade deadline nonsense, but Herman was scratched. Was that a trade deadline thing? The Yankees, I guess they're not buyers. I don't know if they're sellers. They're just sort of like in the middle.
Yeah, they're in the middle. I don't think that's trade deadline related. I didn't see an official reason on why he was scratched, but definitely a very change. The slate has changed a lot just in the last hour here, and we're not done yet. I don't think, like you said, this is one of my favorite times of the year, the trade deadline, all the action, playoff teams trying to make that final push. So yeah, definitely keeping an eye on the news and making sure the scratches and things like that are factored into lineups when we're building.
Saying hello to chat. Chat's helping us out there. I see TJ hanging out, which I guess that means maybe Spidey's lurking. I'm not sure if Spidey's going to be hanging out and dropping some Spidey bombs as the show progresses, as we get those likes. What's up to J3 and John and Derek and Kirkwood? Kirkwood's telling me that apparently that Herman is hurt. Yeah, Scratchy's got he's got an armpit. That's his body part. Yeah, okay. So that's why he's not throwing baseballs today. And we've had 2 scratches, like you mentioned. Silseth, Chase Silth. As somebody who struggled with S's as a youth, that's a tricky name for me to say. Chase Silseth. There you go. He'll be throwing baseballs today for the Angels, taking on the insurmountable task of taking on the Braves. The Braves are the 6 total. It's a 9-game slate as we speak. That may change. We'll see. Stay tuned, because chief meteorologist Kevin Roth is telling us it is a straight orange this evening in Colorado, in Coors. The Padres, the Fathers, are in Coors Field tonight. They have a total closing in on 7 because they're facing Austin Gomber. Pretty clear who the best offenses are on this slate. Pitching is another conversation we'll talk about, Keith. It's pretty compact. If you look at the bat, and DerekCarty will be on later, the bat is like 5 or 6 pitchers within like 2 or 3 points, if that. I was refreshing that pre-show. It's pretty condensed over there. Yeah, welcome. Happy Monday. How are things in your world? And what do we have here as far as the overview? I guess you mentioned the trade stuff, and like, what can you do? Like, are we going to sit there and not play? Well, I was going to say Cody Bellinger, but your Cubbies are, I guess, they're not sellers, and they went on a run, and I don't know if they're buyers or not. But if nothing else, looks like Stroman and Bellinger are going to stick around for the Cubs.
Bellinger for sure. They said they took him off the trade block. Stroman, I don't know. I'm conflicted just because of some of the prices we're seeing out there on some of these trades. I would not hate if the Cubs still move Stroman. Despite their recent run, that it makes them contenders for the division, but I still don't think the Cubs are World Series contenders. So if that's the case, I want to sell all the assets that you can while you can still get something out of them. Stroman is on an expiring contract. Well, he has a player option, but most likely going to decline that with the year he's having. And then he's already been he's already received a qualifying offer, so they can't even get a draft pick if he leaves in free agency. So I wouldn't hate it if the Cubs still traded Stroman and then just picked up a lesser relief pitcher or called up somebody from the minors. So keeping an eye on the Stroman news, I still think he is on the trade block for sure. Other guys, hitters and things like that, like as far as potential trades that might happen later on in the night, I don't really factor in guys that are on the block while I'm building. Like you're never going to know if somebody gets taken out mid-game. It is what it is. You just kind of got to deal with that this time of year.
Yeah, what a reasonable take from the Cubs organization. And, I thought they had a chance to win the World Series until I saw the Angels. I don't know if you know this. They've traded for Randall Grichuk and CJ Cron. Oh, my God. This is a World Series lineup. Luis Rengifo leading off for them. What a powerhouse he is. Shohei Ohtani, Cron, Moniak. Best cleanup hitter in the business. Hunter Renfroe, Moustakas, Grichuk, Neto, and Wallach. If that doesn't scream championship, what a genius front office there for the Angels. I'm just being a smart ass taking my shots at the Angels.
They do have the added equity of trying to lure Ohtani to stick around, right? So if they make the playoffs and make a little bit of noise, maybe that gives them a slight bump in chances of retaining Ohtani. I still don't think it happens. I think he's the other side of the city bound or across the country bound, but we'll see. I totally get your stance on Ohtani. Like the Angels probably aren't winning anything, but if it gets them a 5-10% extra chance of re-signing him, maybe it's worth it.
I mean, who am I to put myself in Ohtani's head, but in his camp or whatever? But do you really think he's sitting around and is like, I wasn't going to resign, but they just said that we're going all in with CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk? Like, come on. I mean, that's my retort. People are saying they're going for it. If this is your definition of going for it, this is not going for it. This is not. I mean, getting an actual real good baseball player will be going for it, but I don't want to. That's my soapbox, Keith, and I'm sticking to it. And look, I'm a neutral fan. I don't have a team like, oh man, I really wish they're keeping him, not trading to my team, the Rays or whatever. I value competence, and I'm rooting against the Angels now furiously because I do not want incompetence to be rewarded. And that's where I'm at. So, and I will be egg on my face on Twitter because I've taken a lot of stands, and people will be, what's the old takes exposed? Will be all over me, all over my Twitter if the Angels somehow win a title this year. But I think it's just pathetic what they're doing and incredibly short-sighted. But good for them. 15%, 20% chance of making the playoffs, and then when you get the playoffs, and good luck there. But we'll see. Stay tuned. Is chat with me? I see chat calling me a hater. I don't hate the Angels. I just think it's silly what they're doing, and it's just. And I think you're a prospect guy. Isn't there prospects they already stink, and they've already traded a couple more, and they could.
Yeah, I was gonna if they keep adding, maybe they have a shot. But their prospect covered is very barren at this point. They probably have the worst farm system in all of baseball at this point.
It's going to be Mike Trout and a bunch of nobodies next year, and Mike Trout's going to be demanding a trade. That'll be a lot of fun. And before that happens, all right. Kirkwood saying, let's see, is Kirkwood coming at me here or not? I can't really get to that. Yeah, Paul's talking about a potential postponement there in Colorado. Who are we to speculate? We got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth coming on later. And the tricky thing is, right, Roth can give you the update all the way up to lock, 7:05, 7:07, whatever it is. But this is also a late game out there in Denver. So, follow him on Twitter, of course. I would imagine he'll be giving some Twitter updates. He'll probably update this article on 5:30, but again, you can only tell so much a couple hours out. But do you have an approach, a thought process as of right now? And it's just sort of flexible. And there are a couple games afterwards, right? Boston, Seattle, Arizona, San Fran. Nothing that really, screams, jumps off the page is like, oh man, I got to get some Boston stacks versus George Kirby. And Pavetta's going to be reasonably popular as well because he's pretty cheap. Do we have a plan as far as the Padres? And then a plan B if things go awry? Or are we still kind of figuring that out, playing it by ear?
Playing it by ear for sure. Definitely want to tune in and hear what Roth has to say about it. Right now, the current plan is to load up on Padres. I think the sentiment kind of around the industry is that the game is very, very risky. It's a little bit more difficult now with the pitching scratch. I had San Diego clearly ahead of Atlanta and Houston in my stacks rankings until Canning got scratched. And now the Braves are facing Silseth, who is a far weaker pitcher than Griffin Canning. So that bumps up the Braves. I think the pivots are really, really strong today. I would not fault anybody just to say I'm not dealing with Coors Field. There's too high of a risk there. I can just play Astros. I can play Braves. There's several other teams as well. It's a big enough slate. There's plenty of good pivots. If you don't want to mess with that, I don't think you have to. Personally, for me, it's an elite spot for San Diego, and I feel like the ownership is going to kind of keep coming down. And if I can get Padres potentially low owned in tournaments, I'm happy to take the risk. If it burns me and it gets postponed after lock, then so be it. But they are currently in my lineups, and I'm going to keep them that way until I hear what Roth has to say on crunch time. But yeah, definitely stay tuned, and definitely a very fluid situation.
Can you help me out? What are the Guardians doing? They traded Savali today. They got a legit prospect for him. A couple of days ago, they traded to whatever's left of Noah Syndergaard, and he's in the rotation. I know they're without Bieber. I know they're without McKenzie, and they're struggling. But what's the plan here? Are they buyers? Are they sellers? They can't honestly believe that Syndergaard has something left in the tank, because if they do, is there not an analytics department in Cleveland? He's been horrendous, and the velocity is dead. You have a general thought? It just seems weird that they have a legit chance to make the playoffs just because their division's so weak, the AL Central. They're battling it out with Minnesota, so they got a chance to fall into the playoffs with essentially a 500 record. What's the Cleveland plan here? And like they're trading Savali and trading for Cindergaard. Is that just weird to you, or is it just weird to me? Maybe it's just me. I don't get it.
It is weird. It looks like Alex Cobb just got scratched. TJ saying in the chat that Jake Junis is starting now. Like, what is going on today?
Our pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah.
Okay. Your thought as far as Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland, it's definitely weird. They're in a tough spot where they're just they'd be sneaking into the playoffs because they're in a really weak division, kind of very similar to the Cubs situation. So I think they're building a little bit for the future, as well as trying to remain competitive in the division, which is an approach that I don't necessarily hate. Like for a team like Cleveland, playoff revenue is a huge deal. So if they can squeak into the playoffs and get a couple playoff games, that's beneficial to them. The Savali trade, I understood. They got a really good prospect, a very nice return for Savali.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland is one of the like, I would say, smartest organizations from an analytics standpoint. They're very invested in analytics, and they're very good at developing pitching. So maybe they found something in tape of Cindergaard. They think they can tweak something and fix him a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't hate the pickup. That was super cheap. And then flipping Savali, I think it was just the return was too good to pass up.
Interesting. Yeah, and I'm not rooting against Thor. It just seems like he's been, he's just done. Essentially, the arm is just flamed out, for lack of a better term. But all right, and I think Houston. I would imagine Houston. You mentioned them as far as potential pivots away from San Diego tonight. Houston looks pretty appealing as well. We'll see what the Cindergaard brings this evening. So Junis is in and Cobb is out. Okay, Cobb's going to start on Tuesday, so it's not like What's strange is like none of this, it seems like, is trade related. It's just three guys.
No, they're all contenders.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bizarre.
It's very confusing.
Yep.
All right. Padres lineup just came out, by the way, and Kim's playing. He's leading off. He left yesterday's game, I believe, with a shoulder, or maybe it was a hand. He was sliding in the home plate. So Kim is in. Yeah, Kim is in. Tatis, we projected him out for what it's worth, so that's going to change projections a little bit. And it gives them an extra guy off the bench. And it also raises the pinch hit risk for Batten because now they have 4 hitters off the bench. Okay, Kim, Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts, Cronenworth, Sanchez. So they're not running out 2 catchers, Batten and Grisham. We projected Campusano, one of those guys, DHing. Okay, so Kim's going to be really popular, and he wasn't currently. Did you work on projections today? Is that I know you do it some days.
No, I was not on today. I had all kinds of other content, though.
Yeah. What did you do? Expert survey?
I did expert survey, rankings, lineup tags, and the stacks article.
Oh, you're all over the place, man.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just going to assume that Kim is going to be super, super popular. DHing today. Does he typically? He doesn't typically DH, does he? You think that's because of the injury, the shoulder? I'm not sure, but I feel like he's not their traditional DH.
No, he's an elite defender, so he's usually out there in the infield when he's healthy. I'm guessing that's shoulder related, which is a bit concerning. If he's going to be popular and he's dealing with something in the shoulder, I don't know. He's healthy enough that he's out there, so I'm going to trust that he can swing a bat just fine. But obviously, something with the throwing or something like that.
Yeah, you got to think they wouldn't. There's no reason to rush that. I wouldn't think they would rush that back. And he's been like awesome this year. Like the Padres as a whole have been a pretty disappointing team, but he's overachieved. I think it's fair to say. Is that fair to say? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's just kind of adjusting and reaching his potential. He was really young when he came over from Korea. He was a stud over in Korea. So,
all right, giving a refresh at our projection team. Now they have to kick Cobb out. Not that Cobb was getting a ton of ownership. Let's see, he was getting 15% on DK, which actually in my head I thought was a little bit lower. But we'll give a refresh. We'll see where we're at as far as pitching today. I did mention like that the hitting feels like these are the best stacks. And of course there's pivot stacks and it's baseball and variance and yada, yada. But pitching seems a little less straightforward. I was talking about the projections on the bat and even our projections here, the plate IQ projections. It's pretty condensed, right? Well, actually Glasnow is well ahead of the field on the plate IQ projections taking on the Yankee team. Yes, Judge is back. He also offers some strikeouts as well, but what's your approach as far as pitchers today? I think there's some good options. I don't know if there's any like amazing, like must play options. There's some interesting options from a price point perspective. I'm curious how you're handling pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, it's very bunched up, like you mentioned. I do think the conversation at the top is very interesting because projections are down on Corbin Burnes because he was so awful to start the season. I feel like he's turned a corner here recently, and I know it's a high contact Washington offense, but Burnes has looked really solid. His last couple times out, he was over 10 strikeouts in 2 of the last 3. Had a tough matchup with, I believe it was Cincinnati, his last time out. But projections are down on Burnes, and I think he's getting docked for the beginning of his season. When this guy's right, he is a top 3 pitcher in baseball, and he has looked pretty right to me over the last month or so. So I think Burnes is the guy that I'm leaning on going overweight on. He has the type of stuff that even in not great strikeout matchups, he can still rack up 9-10 strikeouts. Glasnow gets the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, so there's home run risk there. There's certainly strikeout upside as well. He would be right there in that conversation for me. And then Charlie Morton is a little bit cheaper, and just point per dollar wise, I would put with those two and that would be the top tier. Ownership has changed around quite a bit throughout the day. Burnes was really low earlier in the day, but I think he's gained some steam as the day has rolled on. Morton has come down a little bit. My original plan was to go way underweight on Morton and way over on Burnes. I still think that's the way I'm leaning. It's just Morton is not as popular as he was earlier in the day, and that's putting him back into play a little bit more for me. This Angels lineup, I'm with you. I'm not sold that the Angels lineup is all that great, even with the additions. Morton's strikeout rate, though, leaves a little bit to be desired. I think Glasnow and Burnes have more upside in that regard, but you do save the money. So that does put Morton right there in the conversation. And then I think the obvious play is Nick Pivetta. He's just far too cheap. He's been striking out a ton of guys this season, strikeout rate over 29%, and he gets a matchup against Seattle, who has struck out the second most in all of baseball this season. 6,600 on DK is way too cheap. An easy plug and play as an SP2. The problem is the ownership. And then even on FanDuel at 8K as your only pitcher, because I can find flaws with all of those top guys, I think Pivetta is very much in play on FanDuel as well.
Am I wrong to say? Go ahead.
With Pivetta, he's been working behind an opener, and
that's what I was going to ask you about.
He's listed as the starter here today. It wouldn't surprise me if Boston ends up throwing an opener out there, but we don't have to worry about those shenanigans where he's scheduled to pitch behind the opener and then he just doesn't show up at all. We saw that yesterday. But Chris Murphy is the other guy they've been using as the long man. He threw over 3 innings yesterday, so I'm like 99% sure that Pivetta is going to see the mound at some point, even if Boston does insert an opener before the first pitch there. Just that strikeout rate and that price tag are far too good for today.
It's baked into the price, but I was going to talk about that. Pivetta, especially on DK, it's more of a DK conversation. FanDuel, like you said, he's certainly playable at 8K. If he doesn't start, like if we get that, certainly he loses the chances for a quality start. I guess it doesn't mean you can't play him, but I would have a little bit of apprehension. It certainly hurts his ceiling. And they don't really push him anyway, right? Last time out, he was pitching spectacular. 5 clean innings, 80 pitches. He was out. That's it. Game over. Before that, he had just like an inning of work, I think, out of the bullpen against the Mets. He went 6 against Oakland, but that was the game where he was out of his mind. And I believe he came off in the game in the second or third inning or something like that, and went 6 innings and struck out 13. That's Oakland too. But, the point is, like, his pitch count is pushed out a little bit, but it's kind of baked into the price. And I was going to mention the same exact thing. You were thinking the same thing as far as the decent chance, or at least a chance, that Boston drops an opener on us. But you're not concerned if they do. More so on DK, and that's where you're going to play him anyway. Would you not play him on FanDuel if an opener comes out? It keeps you from the quality start. Doesn't mean he can't win. Better chance of winning in theory, right?
Yeah.
But,
I think he would still be in play in FanDuel. TJ says we have the confirmed lineup, and he was announced as a starter. So I think this is a moot conversation at this point.
Good point.
Just in case it's not, though, I still think Pivetta is in play. It's the strikeout rate for the price is really what I'm chasing, and it's an awesome strikeout matchup.
We just got Seattle's lineup for what it's worth. Let me see. I just want to scroll to it. I think it is as it's always been, basically. Crawford, J-Rod, Suarez, Raleigh, Hernandez, France, Murphy, Marlowe, Caballero. Okay, there you go. Pretty standard lineup out of Seattle. Who are we waiting for as far as lineups? We're waiting for Arizona. We're waiting for Sant Fran. Man, that Colorado lineup is rough. We were talking about it in Discord. TJ, I see TJ hanging out in chat, assuming weather permitting. He was talking apparently on the morning grind. I don't know how thirsty they were on that show, but they were talking about lock buttoning Seth Lugo, which, you could play Seth Lugo. I mean, lock button Seth Lugo. I know he's super cheap and he's an interesting pivot away from Pivetta, I suppose. But yeah, and Lugo's been fine this year, and that Rockies team is pretty terrible. But I don't. Is he? I think he's in the pool if Roth gives the go ahead. But I don't know how much you want to force it when it comes to like how dicey that situation is going to play out there in Colorado. And obviously, we don't know. We're 3+ hours out. Stay tuned to what Roth has to say. He'll be on here in 50 minutes. He probably updates his article around this time. I'll give it a refresh. Maybe it's coming in now. Maybe it'll come in about 10 minutes or so. But yeah, basically, flood watch in Colorado tonight. Widespread thunderstorms, likely during the game. And I'm reading this as Roth. So I think some sort of delay is highly likely with a chance they postpone it. With this game being nearly 2 hours after the first games, it might be tough to know the outcome by lock. Yeah, but we'll know more at least in an hour. And then for sure, Roth will be giving the updates on his Twitter as well. All right. I think we gave the projection team enough time to give us some new projections, give it a refresh with Kick and Cobb out. Let's see. Yeah. All right. As of 10 minutes ago on DK. So that's the thing, Keith. Pivetta, you mentioned, it's no secret. He's getting 40% because he's underpriced and he helps you get, the Padres, if that's a thing. He helps you get the Braves. He helps you get the Astros. Is that a comfortable number? Do you want 40% Pivetta? You want more than that? Under that? You're going to take a stand as far as Pivetta tonight?
It is not a comfortable number at all, but who are the pivots in this range? You touched on Seth Lugo a little bit. That sentence from Roth that says a delay is highly likely. I mean, we're talking about a pitcher in Coors Field here. Like, I'm already taking risk with it being in Coors Field, and now you're adding weather risk to that, and it sounds like he's pretty confident there will be a delay of some sort. I don't think I can mess with Lugo. I would have been totally fine with it if there was no weather there. There's way too much that can go wrong for Lugo to want to go there. Seth has the best offense in baseball he's facing. Kyle Gibson has a very bad matchup. He's not striking anybody out. Same goes for Johnny Brito. Like there's no options down here. I think JP France maybe is the one guy that could be in the conversation, but he has a below average strikeout rate as well. And he faces one of the highest contact teams in Cleveland. Not a good matchup for him to put up a ceiling score either. So at this point,
out on France.
Yeah, me too. I don't really see many other options. I'm just going to play as much Pivetta as I need. It's probably going to land in like the 60% range. So I can get up to those elite stacks like Atlanta and San Diego and Houston. He's just kind of a necessary evil on this slate, and I don't really see a way around him.
By the way, the Mariners just traded their closer, Paul Sewald, to the Diamondbacks. Wow. I don't know how that makes their bullpen a little bit weaker tonight for what it's worth against Boston, if you're considering stacking Boston. But I'm not really looking to pick on Kirby, right? But just throwing it out there. That's interesting. Are the Mariners like officially out? Like, are they 10% chance, 15% chance?
No, but the Mariners have no problem moving pieces around. They've done this for the past couple of years. They'll make trades that look like they're selling, and then the next hour they'll be buying somebody. So it would not surprise me if they jump back in on somebody else.
Let's see. Stan, we'll talk about hitters soon enough. We'll talk about the Jays. We'll talk about all the stacks. Eventually we'll get to them. Why is there only 5 games on Weather Edge tonight? I don't know. Well, I'll tell you this. Weather Edge has they've been trying to figure it out all season as far as the Braves and as far as Atlanta, but it seems to not catch Atlanta. I don't know why. Well, the roof is going to be closed in Toronto, I imagine, so Toronto's not on there. The roof is going to be closed in Houston. I did see that. Is there another roof game that I'm missing? What game are we not including here on Weather Edge? I'm not sure. Weather Edge, by the way, likes pitching in that Chicago game where Cincinnati, 142 game sample, 75 degrees, wind blowing in 9 miles per hour from a right center field in that scenario. 142 games, pretty big sample, a decrease in homers at 21%, which I kind of wanted to play some Cubs tonight because I love the homer hunt against Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott allows so many fly balls. He's been crazy lucky so far this season. Keep saying that, especially pitching out of Cincinnati. His home run the fly ball this year at 9.4%. His BABIP at 222. His left on base percentage, I'm sure at 96.2%, which is just outrageous. League average is what, like 70, 71, 72 around there? You probably know this off the dome.
I don't know the exact number. It is in the low 70s, though, I believe. Yeah. The BABIP is way lower than league average, too.
So, yeah, Abbott's another guy. They're asking you to pay full price. Regression monster, like theoretically, should make an arrival. Obviously, he's a young pitcher. He's got some talent. He can strike some guys out. 27.8% as far as the K is. When he's not striking guys out, he's giving up a lot of fly balls. And your Cubbies, they do have power. I was just hoping for a better atmospheric homers. Is Abbott in your pool? How do you feel about Andrew Abbott? Because you got to pay full price for him, and that's why he's going to be low owned. But certainly he could strike out 10 Cubs, and it wouldn't shock you.
Yeah, that's it right there. He's in the tournament pool just for that reason. 28% strikeout rate on the season, pretty solid. The Cubs lineup does have strikeouts. They also do have power, though. So I think this is a game that you play both sides of. And I don't love the Cubs as a full stack, more of like a two-man or three-man, just hunting home runs, kind of exactly some of the points you were touching on there. If the weather were better, I think you could make it a full stack. But for my money, I slightly prefer the Abbott side of this. I will have more Abbott than I do full Cubs stacks for sure, and probably even more than I have mini stacks of Cubs. Abbott's in the pool just because we're chasing strikeouts here.
You make 20 lineups. You say Abbott's in the pool. He's currently getting 10% ownership. Is it going to be around there? Maybe 3 or 4 lineups out of 20? 2 or 3? 4?
We'll be over the field. Probably 15 or 20%.
By the way, the other part of that trade, Arizona traded Ryan Bliss, who I'm guessing is a minor leaguer. Dominic Canzone, who's just got called up recently, and I think he was projected to play tonight, as well as Josh Rojas. So we might be getting a little bit different. Rojas and Canzone were both projected. Now, I don't know what to do with that because I don't think we're not going to play Jacob Junis. I can't imagine 7.5. If he's like 4K, sure, but are you playing for 7.5K Jacob Junis? I am not.
No way. Especially not Arizona. Like, they just don't strike out enough. Junis doesn't have a leash at all, so no chance on Junis.
Curious who that might open up the opportunity for on Arizona. You take Canzone out of the lineup, you take Rojas out of the lineup. I think Longoria just went on the IL, if I'm not mistaken. Who's left? Who's gonna jump up? Maybe Rivera, maybe Nick Ahmed. Those guys. Are they? Yeah. Do we care about that?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
No. I think Rivera will be in there for sure. And then is Alec Thomas up? Maybe he'll get the call back up if he's not. But he could go in there for Canzone, right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Maybe some potential cheapies there, some salary savers. So we'll see. That's a 9:45 game on the East Coast, so naturally it's not shocking. The lineup has not been revealed, and we got the news he just dropped a trade on us. San Fran, Arizona, no lineups just yet, and everybody else we're good. Ryan Nelson, we're not playing, right? Cross him off the list. I can't imagine we're rostering Ryan Nelson tonight.
Yeah, no thanks for me.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. It's tough. I'm trying to see if there's anybody we missed or it's worth talking about. Cindergaard is 6K, but I'm more on the Houston side, and I got to see it if there's some sort of reclamation project that Cleveland can figure it out and work their magic. If they saw something in him, whatever they traded, whatever the reason why they traded for him. But it's a no-go for me. Silseth, did you say that you thought it was a positive or a negative for Atlanta with Silseth? Because big ground ball guy, also a ton of walks too, which probably don't want to be locking the Braves because they won't make you pay. A tough ballpark as well, obviously. Did you think it was a downgrade or an upgrade with Silseth, jumping taking the ball today for the Angels against the Braves?
Upgrade to the Atlanta stack. I think they have even more upside than they did. Canning is a solid pitcher. He's slightly above league average. Silseth is probably slightly below league average. So he is a ground ball pitcher, but Atlanta has a ton of fly ball hitters in the lineup. So I think this raises the upside for Atlanta.
Eric wants to know if Bellinger got traded. No, they took him off the market, and your Cubs actually have a legit, they have a puncher's chance. They got a legit chance. If you pull up the Fangraphs projections, I think it's somewhere in the 30s, right? Percentage-wise, as far as the Cubbies making 26.8%. Gave him a little bit too much credit, but still, they got a shot, 26.8% to make the playoffs. And like we mentioned Stroman, there's a shot, I suppose, he might get scratched. Stay tuned on that. But as of right now, we're expecting him to stick around with the Cubs and throw baseballs this evening. Just checking in on the chat, seeing what's up, because I saw that somebody – okay, Gridiron's asking if Colorado San Diego is postponed. Nope. It's currently orange, straight orange from Roth. Let's see if we got an update or not. I can go ahead and drop this in chat for the people once again. I'm trying to see if he updated this. I don't think so. And this is the only spot, right, as far as weather. Green, yellow for the Yankees, green, yellow for Washington. And Roth notes the Cubs, Chicago, Wrigley. Winds in from right a bit under 10 miles per hour. Mr. Donk, I don't want to say living up to his name, said he was going to pair Nelson and Lugo, but the weather is what's keeping him away from it, apparently. I mean, okay. If that's what chases you away. Yeah, Lugo might get some ownership if we actually
I would say the weather is chasing me away from Lugo as well. I would have been very willing to roster him on this slate, just given the massive chalk with Pivetta. There's just too much risk when you add in the weather as well. It was already risky enough just going into Coors, but now you add weather risk as well, and I don't think it's worth it at this point.
We do the consensus value rankings, and I believe I was the only one to actually rank Lugo. We rank 6 pitchers when it's 9 games or less. And I got him 6th. He made the board for me and nobody else. You participated. Would he have been your 7th guy? Because he didn't make your top 6.
He would have been probably my 5th guy had the weather been 100% good. Yeah, I don't think he's playable at this point because of the weather is why I don't have him ranked. But if the weather was totally fine, he'd be 5th on my list.
Our consensus rankings, myself, yourself, the Luch, and Head Chopper. We have Pivetta 1, Glasnow 2, Burns 3, Morton 4, Kirby 5, Abbott, and then Lugo. It's really condensed, right? The 4 of us, we have a combined 7 pitchers. We basically stuck with the same pitchers. Projections-wise, on DK, we currently have Pivetta getting – it actually jumped up a little bit in the last the last batch. It's now 42% for Pivetta. 42.7. I'm actually cheating him a couple decimal points here. Morton at 27%, Kirby at 27. You don't really want to pick on Boston, but he's got a pretty good price, and he's a guy that, like, if Babbitt's on his side, he can go 7+ innings. Doesn't really walk anybody. Glasnow getting 23%. Burns 21. You mentioned that. It was about 10 or 15 earlier in the day, and that's crept up. Also, Cobb, his percentage points had to be delegated somewhere. You got the Hound, Chris Bassett at 15% versus Baltimore. Abbott at 10, Stroman at 6, and then we have Lugo at 4 or 5. Yeah, it's what's the one pitcher out of that grouping you think you're taking the biggest stand on? You mentioned before it's Burns. You're sticking with Burns. You're going to get well over 21%. Keith, are you with me? I believe Keith is frozen, or my connection is gone. Am I talking to myself? Chat, let me know what's going on.
Keith is frozen.
All right, thank you. All right. If I remember correctly, Keith was talking about getting himself a fair bit of Burns. Burns has worked his way up to 21%. No Candelario in that Washington lineup. I know producer Steve, you mentioned before that he was injured, and I saw a note that he's on the trade block. So either way, it's one of the reasons why he is not playing baseball this evening. Do want to hit those likes, by the way. Hit those likes in chat. Kindly consider hitting that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications, do all those things, hit all the buttons. We do appreciate that. I saw that TJ was hanging out. I have not seen him for a bit, but I would imagine if TJ pops his head back up, he's going to have some sort of threshold when it comes to likes. Enough likes, you get yourself your Spidey bombs. Check out Fanduel, by the way. I've not discussed Fanduel. Did not mean to neglect them. Fanduel, different conversation. Obviously, you're only running one pitcher out there. I got to give a refresh on this because this is like a half hour old. Let's see if we have new stuff when it comes to Fanduel. Let's see, 532. So, yes, a brand new batch of ownership over there. 100 likes, by the way, according to TJ hanging out in chat. You're going to get yourself a Spidey bomb. Charlie Morton, the most popular pitcher over there. Not a huge discount, 9.4. Facing that newly revamped Angels lineup. 17% for Pivetta, where he's 8K. Meaningful discount. Burns is a getting 15%. Glasnow at 8. I like Glasnow in tournaments if that's where he's going to come in. We know single entry stuff kind of the top, the top projected pitchers even get more elevated in tournaments. So I think if you can get Glasnow in a single entry contest, like at 5 or 10% on FanDuel, that sounds spectacular to me. Kirby at just 7% is kind of sort of somewhat interesting as well, but I would shoot for the upside with Glasnow. Certainly Kirby's perfectly fine as well. TJ's hanging out in chat. He says he can hop in if necessary. I don't know what is up with Keith. Steve, do we have a communication at all with Keith? Or I guess he'll be he's trying to figure out how to come back. What do you got for me, Steve?
We're going to give him a minute and see if he can get his internet back.
All right, fair enough.
Oh, it looks like he's back.
Cool. All right. Kirkwood says just Suzuki. I don't know if that says – they're asking for a Juggalo bomb. It's Suzuki. There it is. Kirkwood picking on me and him are thinking similarly. I wish the weather was a little bit better when it comes to hitting homers there in Chicago, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Just takes a little bit more oomph, I suppose. Keith, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No, dude, all good. No worries. These things happen. Give me the summary as far as pitchers. And I should mention again, Carty's going to be on like 35 minutes or I don't want to give away the bats. Obviously, support DerekCarty, support the bat. But last I saw, I want to give it a refresh, but it is pretty wild how congested it is when it comes to the projections as far as pitchers over there. Let's see if it's changed or not, because I know the RG projections has Glasnow separating a little bit. So Morton, Pivetta, Kirby, Burns, Glasnow, and Bassett are all between 16 and 17 fantasy points, which is kind of wild. That's just pretty interesting. And we didn't really mention Bassett, but if you can get 16 at a Bassett, I think that's fine. I kind of like that Baltimore offense. I know we're still without Mullins. How many lefties is he facing? Because that's his tricky.
That's what he's really struggled with. That's a good question. Baltimore can get pretty left-handed, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lefties in there. Yeah, I'll take the under on 16 points from Bassett.
I think it's a one too many lefties.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sure, if you want them in the pool, by all means, go for it. Give me the summary as far as pitchers, how you're attacking tonight's slate.
Yeah, extremely tightly bunched, like you mentioned. In the top range, it's Burns number 1 for me, followed by Glasnow and then Morton. Andrew Abbott will be in my tournament pool as well. Pivetta as the very obvious cheap guy, just a big strikeout rate for a low price tag and facing a very strikeout heavy offense. Those are my main 5. I will sprinkle in a little bit of Stroman and a little bit of Kirby, but I'm not in love with either of their matchups. 2 low strikeout pitchers. Boston, a very contact heavy offense as well. So I'll definitely be underweight on Kirby. Slightly overweight on Stroman, and it's just an ownership play. And he gets a little wind blowing in. He'll keep the ball on the ground. So I feel like he could get through 6 or 7 pretty clean, but just a very low tournament sprinkle for me.
Shannon's talking about Pivetta chalk. So nice. The Mariners are interesting because if nothing else, they're really cheap. We'll talk about that on DK. Suarez has been cheap for some reason, as well as Hernandez has been pretty cheap. They are both in the lineup. Crawford, J-Rod, Suarez, Raleigh, Hernandez, France, Murphy, Marlo, Caballero. And Caballero always turns into they always flip back and forth, right? The guy, the first baseman. Don't those guys always King? No, what's his name? No, it's
Ford. Is that
Ford.
No.
Yeah. It isn't. I feel like those guys always seem to pinch hit for each other, if I'm not mistaken. Lefty, righty, depending on the starter, depending on who comes in as far as relievers. Okay. By the way, I mentioned FanDuel when you were gone. Did want to mention the single entry series over on FanDuel. It does continue. The RotoGrinders sponsored single entry series, I believe this week is the $33 variety. Last week was the 5 and the 100. Same person won both, by the way. I don't know if you saw this. Man, I can't remember the name. And I think it was somebody that like you recognize taking down a fair bit of tournaments. But shout out to them. They was brought up in the Discord channel, and I think I saw Dan Bach tweet out as well. But that's not easy to do. Same person. No. I guess they were running the same lineups. Yeah, Alex in chat, FJ Bourne. Now that's who it was who won both of them. So shout out to FJ Bourne because that's a pretty impressive feat. New slate starts this week, and Monday. This is you want to get as many shots at it as possible. Your top 5 scores from Monday through Sunday. Whoever has the top cumulative top 5 scores will get the added value. And I think you're entered another contest or it's another payout. I'm not exactly sure. It does change sometimes. I apologize for not being aware of that, but it is added value. And if you're playing on FanDuel tonight, your first $33 should go to the single entry series over there. Stacks, Keith, we have, the Padres, if that game goes, look spectacular. The Braves against anybody. They're facing Silseth. Just the Braves are always the answer. They're ridiculous. The Astros against Cindergaard and what's left of him, a +5 total. And the Astros, they're fully healthy again. They got their better catcher. Diaz is in there, not Maldonado. Who's the outfielder that's not playing today? We got Jolks and we have Myers, but the McCormick is not playing today. Yeah. I think it's kind of clear and obvious, again, pre-flop, before things go down, who the top offenses are. And I know you were talking about one of the sneaky ones, and some people in chat were mentioning I wanted to save this portion. But, give me your assessment as far as stacks tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a very clear top three. San Diego was number one for me before the pitching change for the Angels, and now Atlanta has leaped them. Also, you have that weather that we're dealing with in Coors Field, so make sure you are keeping an eye on that. Tune into Crunch Time after us. Make sure you get Ross breakdown of that. It's a risk tolerance thing, but San Diego and Atlanta right there tied for number one for me. Houston very close behind them. That would be a very clear top three for me. I have Milwaukee next, and then Tampa Bay is the sneakier team that I really like. I liked them when it was Herman, and now that we have the switch to Brito, I think that just raises their upside even more. Very low strikeouts from Brito, a massive ballpark upgrade for Tampa going from Tropicana down there into Yankee Stadium, which is much more friendly for home runs. Tampa Bay is an elite offense. I know that it's been a struggle for them recently, but for the majority of this season, they've been one of the top offenses. They're a tough team to stack because there's not a lot of star power. They're like, you don't look at these names and be like, I need to play that guy. But I think you should definitely have some exposure to Tampa Bay, especially with the pitching change now there to Brito. We mentioned Baltimore. I like Baltimore lefties in particular. Bassett's been really good against righties, but has very struggled mightily against left-handed hitters. Toronto is interesting to me. That's pretty much the pool. The top three, I think, are very clearly in a tier of their own.
Yeah, how would you go about stacking Tampa? Like, who are you prioritizing? Obviously, Franco, Brandon Lau. We know about the right field pole there, so theoretically, he's got a good shot to bang one out just down the line at 330 or whatever it is, 320. Franco or Rosarena are pretty expensive. Tampa has their pinch hit ways, which is kind of annoying as well. But like, who the main guys? Obviously, salary is a thing too. But ideally, who do we want here as far as the Tampa stacks?
Yeah, I mean, Lau and Rayleigh are the two that I have tagged. You mentioned that short porch in right field. Brito has like a 12% strikeout rate to lefties. So Lau has contact problems. He has massive power. This is a fantastic matchup for Brandon Lau, especially with the park upgrade. I also struggle paying up for like Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena. Diaz just because he doesn't have a ton of power. So I like starting I could even skip Franco. I mean, you don't have to by any. He's probably their best hitter, but 5,700. That's a lot of money to spend. I don't mind starting the stack with Lau and then skipping Arozarena and just saving some money with Rayleigh. Paredes. I really like him. He's got a ton of power. Brito gives up plenty of hard contact to righties as well. Josh Lowe has a fair price. Jose Siri has massive speed upside. So the cheaper guys are what I really like here. And in particular, the two lefties, Lau and Rayleigh. I can take or leave Diaz and Arozarena, but certainly wouldn't kick them out of a stack if I've got the money for them.
So our consensus rankings, myself, yourself, Head Chopper, and the Luch. We have San Diego number 1, Atlanta number 2, Houston number 3, but it's like it gives us the average, right? The average ranking, and like even that is suggesting it's pretty clear up top. 1.75 is the average ranking for San Diego, 2 for Atlanta, 2.25 for Houston, and then a big jump to the 4th most popular team, Milwaukee, is the next tier, at least the top of the next tier for us consensus-wise. A little bit of love for Colorado. You gave a shout out to Tampa. The Luch shout out to Baltimore. I had the Cubs. I couldn't figure out my 5th favorite team, but it could be Tampa. It could be Chicago. But yeah, I don't really feel very strong about it. I do like Milwaukee. One of my favorite players is Joey Weimer. That speed power combination, like him better on the road, nice ballpark, and also you're guaranteed that ninth inning. So pretty good chance he gets those 4 at bats every once in a while. Like he gets pinch hit for, I think, but I wouldn't assume that's going to happen tonight. And facing Jake Irvin, I saw somebody in chat talking about him. I can't believe that they're going to consider rostering him, but I would not roster Jake Irvin tonight. Tony's asking what happened to Cobb. Cobb just got scratched. He's going to pitch tomorrow night. I assume he's fine. Kirkwood is speculating it's hemorrhoids. I don't know if it does take 24 hours. Is that actually the body part they gave him, like a butt? I didn't see the official body part, but or is that just Kirkwood's wild speculation? We did get an Arizona lineup, by the way. It's Perdomo leading off, Marte, Carroll, Walker, Gurriel, McCarthy, Rivera. You mentioned Thomas. He's in there, and Herrera is doing the catching for Arizona. Apparently that was Lip doing the speculation. I'm curious, like, big spends tonight, right? The big spends. We're talking about Acuna. Oh, his brother got traded yesterday. Did you know he had a brother? You probably did. You're a big prospect guy.
He's really young, though, right? I think
21. I don't think he's really young.
He's older than I thought. I thought he was like 18 or 19.
Yeah, I don't think he's incredibly young. But and the Mets kind of just like bought a prospect. I think they threw like $20 million their way. Part of the biggest Scherzer had a bunch of money in his deal as well. But going to and Acuna said, Ronald Acuna said that his brother is like ahead of him as far as development wise. So that'll be fun in the same division if he actually becomes a thing.
That's not accurate if he's 21 because Acuna was tearing up Major League Baseball at the age of 20. So Ronald is not correct in that assessment.
Maybe he was just being kind, I don't know.
He came up at 20 and
Luis Daniel Acuna, he's 21 years old. Yeah, so Ronald Acuna is still just 25. There's a Luis. Okay, yeah, I was to say Luis Daniel and Luis is the same person. Okay, yeah, so hopefully he becomes a thing. It's always fun. All right, let's go back. He's not playing. It's DFS. We don't care about.
Ronald had a 142 WRC plus at the age of 20 in Major League Baseball. Ronald is wrong.
I'm telling you, like I can't remember the exact quote. I'm not making that up, but he was like raving about like where his brother is at currently. But
he is an incredible prospect. But as far as being ahead of Ronald's development, that's not accurate.
He's got some modesty to him, I guess, I suppose, or he's just hyping up his brother. So again, I hate to just keep saying, but like understand there's weather in Coors, but assuming everything is in play, as far as like big spends, right? You got Tatis. I guess we can say Soto as well. Probably Tatis first. You have Judge, if you want to consider Judge. I don't think he's going to get played at all, right? Amongst the big studs, because Glasnow's really, really good at baseball. And then we're talking about Yordan Alvarez and Tucker versus Cindergaard. Do you have like a favorite? I know you're probably just like whatever's in your stack is probably your answer, but maybe like a one-off, right? Who's like your favorite big boy one-off tonight?
I mean, just look at that ownership on Shohei Ohtani. Like if I'm looking for a one-off, Ohtani's ownership, just like Morton is a very good pitcher. He's solidly above average, but Ohtani is Ohtani and he can go yard twice in any game. I love him as a one-off. So like, I love the Padres stacks, assuming that we can play them. So Tatis would be my number one guy. Acuna's awesome. And both the Astros lefties are the other guys that would round out the pool. But yeah, just like Tatis, Acuna, Alvarez, and Tucker are getting quite a bit of ownership. I guess Alvarez looks pretty good. But that Ohtani ownership really stood out to me. And I absolutely love him as a one-off today.
I know I was being a smartass making fun of the Angels' like newly bolstered lineup, but I think it is worth noting, and like it's weird to me that other teams haven't figured this out. Over the weekend, you might have caught this. It was Toronto facing different team, different philosophy, but they were facing Ohtani, and they intentionally walked him twice. One time with just one out. I think it was like one out man on second. They intentionally walked him twice, and it was Mickey Moniak, who like once upon a time number one pick, and good for him. He salvaged his career to some extent. Now they have CJ Cron, but like, again, I would just ask, like, why? Why would you pitch to Ohtani? Look, you see it all the time. Like, I think we saw Matt Olson probably should have got pitched the other day, too, and he banged out a homer. Better protection in that lineup for sure, just 1 through 9. But just, is there any concern? Or just, Ohtani is spectacular. I just don't know why people pitch to him. I don't get it with what's around him. It's a little better today, sure. But just as a general thought, like, I don't know. I wouldn't really give in if I can avoid it. But just throwing it out there. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
I mean, that's certainly a concern, but they're not going to walk him 4 or 5 times, I wouldn't think. It's possible, and we are definitely seeing more of it. Yeah, I don't blame you, but that's not how teams are going to operate, I don't think. A concern, but only a mild one.
We got to get TJ Spidey bombs. Do it that like button, please. Subscribe. Consider hitting all the things, hitting all the buttons. I see TJ is going to give 3. Does he have 3 Spidey bombs coming for the people? I'm not sure, but okay. But we could do the same thing with like Judge as well. Like, you know, he doesn't have the greatest protection these days either. I know there's been studies on this, and I feel like Carty can probably speak to it. Isn't protection kind of, sort of, somewhat like a myth, or it's over exaggerated to some extent? I feel like it is, but I feel like I read that someplace. I don't know if you have dug into that, but the concept.
I haven't seen anything on that.
Okay. Maybe that's a good Carty conversation. He's probably done something, or he goes to the, in the off season, he goes in Arizona and there's some kind of school going on. I think he was at scout school many years ago. It's a different school, but I thought it was like an exaggerated thought process. So maybe it's not. All right. I think we're going to get 3 Spidey bombs from TJ in chat. Andrew wants to know what we think about Baltimore mini stack versus Bassett. Yeah, we kind of alluded to this a couple times, and it's not the first stack on the board, but it's a really interesting pivot here. You got Santander, the switch hitter, versus Bassett, as well as Henderson. Is Rushman, has he been leading off ahead of Henderson? Did I miss this?
That's new, I think.
This is new, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Rushman leading off. When does a catcher ever lead off? That's pretty rare, right? Rushman, Henderson, Santander, O'Hearn, Mountcastle, Frazier, Hayes, the rookie Kauser, and then Mateo. All right. So, yeah, I assume you're on board. We kind of alluded to a couple times. Andrew, we can recommend you're perfectly fine firing off a Baltimore mini stack, the lefties against Bassett. You're good with that?
Yeah, absolutely love the lefties. Just to put some context to that, he has allowed a 258 ISO to left-handed batters. He's allowed a .086 ISO to righties. So definitely struggles with the lefties much more than the righties.
Yeah, Alex, of course, is the one that has the answer in this. He says, does not remember if it was in Tanjo's the book, but baseball between the numbers went into line of protection as a myth. Yeah, I mean, that's something I just saw like the cliff notes on it once, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I know it makes sense. A lot you'd think, well, what doesn't it make sense? If an incredible hitter is hitting behind a certain person, of course you're going to get quote unquote protection, but it seems to be an exaggerated thought process. All right, throw out your questions. By the way, we're here for the next 15 minutes, 15 plus, until we hand it off to Crunch Time. Crunch Time, y'all get DerekCarty. You get yourself SquirrelPatrol, who's just smashing the world. How did you dabble in the MMA streets? That's your thing. How did MMA go this weekend? I know he plays that as well.
It was okay. I didn't quite make a profit. I had more Poirier than I did Gaethje. I thought Gaethje was a little bit overowned, and I liked Poirier to win. So it was looking like it was going to be a good night until the main event, and then they kind of went south.
Was that the one where Herb Dean flew in and stopped it? Was that the big stoppage in the main event? It was one of the fights where he just
no.
You know what I'm talking about? That was a different fight.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was. Gaethje head kicked Poirier, and he was out. There was one that was a bit early though.
Yeah, I saw that clip, and I'm forgive my ignorance. I mean, I'm aware of MMA, whatever, but it's not something I watch every single week. Am I wrong to say Herb Dean might have been out of position? It seemed like he was almost too far away from the action and flew in to make that stoppage, or is that kind of where they're supposed to be? Do you know what I'm talking? You know what I'm talking about, right? It seemed like he was far away from what was going on.
Are you talking about the one where he slid in?
Yes, yeah, he slid and like a jump slide.
I don't think that was an early stoppage.
No, it wasn't an early stoppage. It was a great stoppage. I said that correctly. Yeah, it was because the dude was knocked out, but he made sure that was it. The damage was done. But I guess I'm asking a question that I don't fully understand what I'm asking. I just thought it seemed like he was out of position is all I was asking, but I don't pretend to be an expert in that world. Kirkwood says I am correct, which is a rare thing. I don't know what he's talking about. There's no context to it, but I'm just going forward, I'm just going to assume Kirkwood thinks that I am correct. Hey, TJ dropped his Spidey bombs in chat for the people. Brandon Lau, no surprise there. He's stealing that from what? From you. You talked about in the Tampa stack. He's just repackaging it. Typical TJ, typical Spidey. Gunnar Henderson. Oh, look at that. A lefty. A lefty versus Bassett. Did we talk about that? I think we did. Pretty sure we did. And Tristan Casas, the house. He's been smashing baseballs of late.
He stole that one from me, too. That was my sneaky home run call on the expert survey.
What? Oh, my. TJ. Seriously. Try not to make it so obvious, TJ. I mean, maybe just siphon 2 out of 3 and like come up with one off your noggin. Let's see. Did TJ write for the survey today? He did not. I was going to see who his pick was. Everybody has Tatis as their favorite cash spend up, but all that obviously is pending. Let's play the survey game. Sure, why not? Let's ask the question that's in the survey. Who is the player, who is the team, who is the stack that you're most afraid of not having enough of? That's just going to burn you.
I believe my answer was Charlie Morton on that. I prefer the strikeout upside of Glasnow and Burns, so I will be overweight there and underweight on Morton.
Your under the radar homer was indeed Tristan Casas. Jose Siri was thrown out there by Alex. Another a little Tampa Bay love. The Luch has Ryan O'Hearn. I like that one as well. Lefty versus the Hound. Paredes, another Tampa Bay player. Let's see, favorite stack. Is there a chalky stack you're going to be underweight on compared to the field? What your answer was Milwaukee. Do we think Milwaukee's going to be that popular? I know it's a tricky question to answer on the survey because sometimes it's like there's not really maybe not available. That's the chalkiest you're not going to play. Why don't you like Milwaukee?
Just double-digit ownership. It was even higher earlier in the day. It does look like it's come down a little bit. Looks like Yelich is the only one that's really chalk, I would consider. I figured Santana would pick up quite a bit more ownership. And I don't mind the lefties, but Irvin's been pretty decent against righties. I will admit that Milwaukee has gotten more left-handed since they traded for Santana. But it's definitely only a mini stack for me, and I'm probably going to stick to lefties too. So I'll be underweight.
Yeah, your top overall hitter here for the slate is let's see. It's interesting because we have different answers from all. Oh, you know what? We have 3 people saying Kyle Tucker. Yeah, I feel like we haven't talked enough about Houston. We kind of mentioned it several times, but I don't know. I'm not rude. I don't think this ends well for Thor.
I don't either, for the record.
Yeah.
He also has that massive stolen base problem. So like Houston has a very powerful offense, and then you add in stolen base upside to all of this as well. That's why it makes sense for, I think Tatis is the guy I actually wrote up, but I do absolutely love Tucker as well as one of the top spends on the slate. He leads Houston in stolen bases. He hits left-handed. Cindergaard has long had a home run problem against lefties. So there's just all kinds of ways that Tucker can get there today. And even some of the cheaper guys, like Corey Joltz is one of my favorite cheap guys. That speed element that you can add to this for stolen bases just raises the overall ceiling on the Houston stack.
Question, Cindergaard, how stretched out is he? Because his last time in the majors was June 7th. What have we seen from him lately? I assume he's been pitching in the minor leagues, or he's been simulating games. What's he been doing?
I can check his minor league stuff real quick.
I want him to stick around as long as possible, right? I don't want it to turn into like a bullpen game, which I see they're talking about in the chat, and it's a good point. Like if he's only going like 3 or 4, like that's the plan. Don't only go 3 or 4, not because like he gives up 8 runs. I'm not as excited, and like bullpen games generally is just sort of meh. You start playing matchup stuff.
So he made 2 rehab starts for the Dodgers AAA team. He threw 53 pitches in his first one and 77 pitches in his last one. That was on July 21st. So it's been almost 10 days since he's pitched in a game, but he was up to 77 pitches. I feel like he's got more leash than he's going to need tonight.
How was he on those starts, out of curiosity? Anything worth noting you can see in the box score?
5 innings, 6 strikeouts, allowed 1 home run, 2 runs total in his first one, 5 innings, 2 strikeouts, 4 total runs in his second one. So mediocre. And the strikeouts disappeared in the second one.
Mm-hmm. That's And on the season, what's interesting? It's kind of weird on this slate. There are 3 pitchers that have identical K rates of 15.4%. There's not many pitchers that have a 15.4% K rate, but there's 3 of them that have it on this slate. Is Cindergaard, Gomber, and Ryan Nelson. Bospra wants to know favorite stack for single entry. Yeah. How goofy, how different you have to be for single entry. Houston's going to get their fair share of ownership. Atlanta is as well. If San Diego gets the green light, of course. Is Tampa your single entry team? Not to frame it, but you tell me your favorite single entry tournament team is who?
So the San Diego thing is very interesting. If Roth gets on here and says San Diego is very risky, I don't think I would do it, then I will be looking for a pivot. If he says there's going to be a delay, but a low chance of PPD, a postponement, then I think the ownership on San Diego will be lower than it should be. San Diego would be my answer. If I can't play San Diego, Tampa Bay is the team I would be looking to pivot to.
So Mark Canha was just traded to the Brewers. I don't know, probably like nothing given up by Milwaukee of value. Mark Canha, formerly of the Mets. Okay, that's an interesting trade. I guess they gave up nothing for it. Roth did update San Diego, Colorado, and the update is no update. He says nothing new to add. Forecast still holds, and we'll see what he says when he jumps on. He'll add some clarity to that, and he'll give you the update all the way up to 7:05, 7:07, whatever lock goes, and then he'll update on his Twitter. And it is interesting, like you said, if Ross says, maybe if you're feeling ambitious, if you're willing to lose, this is always worth throwing out there, Keith. Sometimes people just don't really think about it, but tell me if you agree. As of right now, if it is orange, it's full stack or nothing. Like there's no reason to one-off somebody for San Diego in a game that's orange, because like if it hits, if the game plays, you want to have you don't want to have a one-off there, and like you don't want to have your Houston stack go off, whatever, and like your one or two Padres don't play. Like, that's the worst. So I assume that's again, this is like general basic stuff, but sometimes people don't really think about that. Would you agree that's where we're at right now? It's all or nothing.
Yes, totally agree with that. And full 5-man stack on DK, full 4-man on FanDuel. I wouldn't even do a 3-man.
Yeah. Would you feel obligated to play some Rockies as well? And just to kind of like, if you really want to fully commit to that game, or not necessarily. I mean, the Rockies, I know Lugo's in play. Like if that game is playable, you could play McMahon, you could play Diaz. They're not totally horrific. Or no? Am I just trying to make fetch happen here? So just
I don't think it's necessary. You just have to be cognizant of which one-offs are in your Padres stacks or even 3-man stacks with Padres full stacks, and just keep that in mind when you're like going through exposures and things like that. If you're like, oh, I want 15% of Ohtani, but he landed, it wouldn't happen because of how pricing is. But if Ohtani happened to land in all Padres stacks and they get rained out, and then Ohtani hits 2 home runs, you'd be pretty disappointed. So just be mindful of your exposures with the other spots on your roster for your San Diego lineups.
Apparently, according to the OMG father, sources for the trade for Canha is a bucket of baseballs and 3 bags of cheese curds. There you go. That's a thing, I think, in Milwaukee, right? Cheese curds. So it's the
cheese
best.
Cheese curds are delicious, actually. So I grew up in Northern Illinois, not too far from the Wisconsin line.
Okay.
And cheese curds are delicious.
So it I think of cheese curds, I think of Milwaukee, but you're saying it also crosses into Illinois as well.
No, it's very much a Wisconsin thing, but I lived close enough to Wisconsin that I've had cheese curds many times.
Fair enough. A person named Jarvis was who was traded for Canha. I'm guessing that's just somebody in their minor league system. I know you're a big prospect guy, but would you know Justin Jarvis off the dome? Probably not.
Not off the dome. Is that didn't the Angels used to have a Jarvis that was a pitching prospect? Not the same guy.
I don't remember.
Not the same guy. I don't
know. You got the chat going now with cheese curds, and now TJ's talking about poutine. Is poutine similar to cheese curds? It's
I think there's cheese curds on poutine. No, there's no mayonnaise in cheese curds.
No, but I think there's mayonnaise in poutine, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a TJ question. Yeah,
that's a Canadian question. But yeah, it's I think it's specifically Montreal is where like that's like the hub, if I'm not mistaken. But I've not been to Montreal. I've been to Canada, so I cannot confirm or deny as far as what's the chat's yelling at me. There's no mayonnaise in poutine. Okay, all right. Tell me what's in there. Brian is trying to get me to say. I see what Brian's doing in chat. Well played. Carty in chat. Oh, okay. Poutine is potatoes, fries, cheese curds, and gravy. There you go. I don't know why I thought mayonnaise was in there, but just three. Just three specific. I have left Florida. I promise you. I don't know if you can get poutine around these parts. Maybe. You never know. Apparently, Izzy confirms he's in Florida and says you can get poutine. All right. What else are we noting here as far as a slate? What else should we focus on? We have 5 minutes till we turn it over to crunch time. Should we do like a little bit of a, we're happy to answer questions. If you have any this guy or that guy questions or whatever you're thinking, thought process wise, strategy wise, happy to tackle those. Whatever's on your mind there in chat. If you want to talk poutine, we can talk poutine as well. Whatever's on your mind. But yeah, give me the summary as far as pitchers. Somebody just tuned in right now. They want Keith's takes when it comes to how he's attacking pitching. What is it?
Very condensed pitching tonight. Up at the top, I've got Burns slightly ahead of Glasnow and Morton. Burns was very rough to start the season. Feel like that projection is taking a bit of hit because of his form early in the season. So his recent form has me feeling like he is more of the elite pitcher that we've seen the past several seasons. Tough strikeout matchup there against Washington, but Burns is the type of guy that can strike out 9 or 10 any matchup. Chasing Glasnow as well for strikeout upside against the Yankees. Tough power spot for him in Yankee Stadium. Morton is the guy I'll be underweight on of that trio. Pivetta as the very obvious cheap guy. Strikeout rate over 29% in a high strikeout matchup against Seattle. The second highest strikeout rate in baseball for Seattle. And then it's kind of, I think Abbott can be in your tournament pool, just chasing some strikeouts. You've got good weather there in Wrigley, wind blowing in a little bit. Kirby and Stroman in the pool, but not excited about either. Will be underweight on Kirby for sure. Don't like the matchup against Boston. Very high contact team. And then Stroman, just not a huge strikeout guy, but a very attractive ownership number.
We have DerekCarty in chat saying, Dean, why do you hate when good teams try to get better and make the playoffs? Well, I mean, first of all, the Angels aren't a good team. I know he's insinuating the Angels. They're not good from the start. They're a bad team or mediocre, like a little bit. They're not good. We're not going to qualify them as a good team. I'm sorry, Luis Rengifo and Mickey Moniak and Neto and Chad Wallach are not scaring anybody. And I hate the fact that they're keeping fun is Ohtani in the playoffs. Imagine Ohtani going to Tampa, and Tampa would give up like their 3 best prospects. And they are so short-sighted, they don't realize that they're almost definitely going to lose Ohtani. And now it's going to be Mike Trout and a bunch of nobodies, and their farm system is barren. Next year, it's going to be a complete and absolute disaster. But I guess it's really hard to sell to the fan base, like, hey, we got to trade the greatest player alive. But, understanding context, understanding nuance, understanding a long-term approach, is not their forte there for the Angels. And they're going for it. They're really going for it, picking up C.J. Cron and Randall Grichuk. Oh, my God, 2 mediocre outfielders. Look at the Angels. And by the way, the Angels, they're way behind in the standings. It's not like we're all starting at 0 and it's a sprint for 2 months. They're way behind. They have a lot of catching up to do. And if you think like Luis Rengifo and Mickey Moniak and C.J. Cron, these are the guys that are going to catch you up in Mario Kart, it ain't happening. It's not happening. And it's just a disaster. And it's going to be the offseason. They're going to be sitting around. It's Trout, a bunch of nobody in the farm system. And the owner, Moreno's probably going to trade the team, as he's already threatened to do. And Ohtani's like, why in the world am I going to stick around here? So there you go. He's keeping fun away from the rest of us baseball fans. I'm a neutral baseball fan, and I want to see Ohtani in the playoffs. And he's not going to be in the playoffs because he's stuck on the Angels. And I also want to see, I would love to know, the offers, Keith. Nothing's even been reported because apparently they just, shut it down. Why would you not at least listen?
That would be my rebuttal. If you look at some of the trades, Juan Soto is not a comp because he had 3.5 years of control left. I think the best comp recently is Mookie Betts. Alex Verdugo, sure, that he's a big piece of Boston now. But it's not like they received 3 or 4 elite prospects. There were a couple good pieces in that Mookie Betts deal as well. But I think that you could say, I don't know if you would agree that trade worked out great.
Boston kind of flubbed it too, to be fair. They kind of flubbed it. And that's a good retort. But also, would you also agree Ohtani would get more? because he's two players. We saw Aaron Savali get the 37 best prospect in all of baseball. Aaron Savali is just like an innings eater. He's mediocre. So imagine you get Ohtani, like one of the best hitters, one of the best pitchers, in one. Like it would be a historic haul. Like that's my counter.
It would be the highest return for a rental of all time. There's no question about that. How high does that go, though? Could you get 3 top 100 prospects for him?
Yes. I think so. Easy.
You're probably right. Yep.
I'm just really curious, like what teams are knocking on that door. Apparently, like, maybe Texas was, maybe Baltimore. Baltimore certainly has the prospects. Tampa's a sharp organization, and they have small windows. And this is one of those years where they have that window. McClanahan's not going to be there forever. We know how Tampa Bay operates. So I feel like they would have made, like, potentially really, really went for it. And it would have been amazing. But now we're just going to have the Angels just wither away. And then, of course, egg on my face when the Angels win the World Series, and I will be an old takes exposed. I will take the L if necessary, but I just don't believe. I cannot believe that they're so short-sighted that they're not going to trade Ohtani. But, anything else as far as the slate? I know Crunch Time's coming in a second. Carty probably wants to rebut. He's hanging out in chat, and by all means, I'd love to hear his perspective on it. And he was touting the Angels' offense like being, like, I don't know if he said elite. I can't remember the adjective he used, but he likes this offense. We haven't talked about the Angels at all. And Morton's going to be, owned to a fair bit. That's a good ballpark here in Atlanta. Do you have any Angel stacks tonight?
Not full stacks. I have quite a bit of Ohtani, but I'm not full stacks.
All right. What else is going on? And you don't trade Babe Ruth 2.0 if you have a top 5 offense. Like, you understand context and nuance. Like, that's like nobody says, I want to trade Shohei Ohtani. Nobody wakes up and says that. Of course not. But just the way things are going.
Someone would wake up and say that. You would, Dean. I have no idea why, but you would.
I just explained why. Where were you the last 5 minutes?
Getting ready for the show.
You heard me talking about Poutine, but you didn't hear me talking about Shohei Ohtani and why the Angels have to trade him?
I heard a little bit. It was mostly nonsense.
Well, I mean, look, it's going to be – Mike Trout is going to be so sad next year when it's like – again, it's the Travolta gift. If producer Steve can drop it on the Travolta from Pulp Fictions, he's looking around for just one competent teammate. One. And there's no one available. And by the way, guess what?
Everyone has said for years, they don't have anyone around Trout and Ohtani. And it's been true. Except this year, it's not true. This year, they have competent guys, and they just went and got more.
Wait, CJ Cron is a league average player at best. Randall Bridges is a league average player at best.
Average. Look on Fangraphs. Literally every projection system has him for like a 115 WRC plus. He's well above average.
Not so far this season, maybe going forward, but so far this season.
Oh my God, 4 months. Oh my God, Dean, 4 months. We're about to just declare a guy dead for 4 months.
Well, you want to put your reputation on the line for CJ Cron in the year 2023?
If you want to say he's a bad hitter, sure, he's above average.
I said no. I think he's average. He's an average hitter. That's what he is.
Well,
actually a 93 WRC plus this year for CJ Cron. It's his worst year in his career, but he's older. He's dealing with injuries in and out of the lineup. But
he's 33 years old. He's not even that old.
33 is not young.
It's not young, but it's not like you're about to fall off a cliff and you're going to buy a fall off after 3 months of a year. It makes no sense. You got to use multiple years.
How many years does CJ Cron get signed for in the offseason? Does anybody give him more than 2 years? I say no.
I mean, he's a first baseman, so he'll probably get like a 2-year deal. But that's the thing. Like when you have Trout and Ohtani, if you put a bunch of average or above average guys around them, you have like the best offense in baseball. Like that's how it works. They've been top 5 this year with garbage. So why are they not going to be better by adding better players?
Why are they losing with garbage? With the garbage around these players?
I mean, they're not losing that much, and it's been partially pitching, which they've improved to, and it's been partially bad luck and injuries. I mean, half their team's injured right now.
We shall put this conversation on pause. The people want to hear what Carty has to say. Not Carty. Well, Carty for sure. But I was going to think weather-wise, specifically for Roth. Although Roth, we did read your weather report not too long ago, the update, and apparently it's no update. So we'll stay tuned and see what you have to say throughout the show. Keith, anything else before you step aside and get out of here? Is there an official judge's ruling? I need one of those rigged MMA judges to give me the victory over Carty. I don't really know I hear that they
I
rig
don't
them
know.
pretty
Like
good in
that
MMA.
thinks I won.
What's a small samples? We need 10,000 people to chime in to say who actually won.
All right, everyone who's watching this show, chime in and chat. Like and subscribe while you're at it.
There we go.
You got anything else, Keith, before you step aside and make way for the FanDuel sponsored Crunch Time?
I'm good. I can't wait to hear Russ weather report, so let's let him get to it.
By the way, somebody's speculating on Carty's height. I'll tell you this. Carty, sneaky tall. You see him in person. 6'3"? Carty, 6'3"?
Nah, 6'1".
Yeah, there you go. Someone let Squirrel talk, TJ is saying. Squirrel's just hanging out, collecting his money from a couple days ago and every other day. But
I've
yeah,
been busy
Squirrel's
betting on Angels futures.
Carty moved the needle the other day.
We're going to be sad when you don't bet Angels Padres World Series at, I forget what I got it at, like, I don't know, 500 to 1 or something crazy. So I'm going to be cashing that in a couple months.
I am actively rooting against the Angels. I hate being the root against guy, but I'm rooting against the Angels. I feel like they should be punished. Keith, you got anything else before you step aside and get out of here?
Nothing else.
That was Keith. I was Dean, the FanDuel sponsor Crunch Time. You got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. You got SquirrelPatrol. You have DerekCarty. Roth, take it away.
Hey, good stuff as always. True. Welcome to it. This is indeed Crunch Time. It is indeed sponsored by FanDuel. And it's the show where we bring on two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got DerekCarty, creator, inventor, and CEO of The Bat. What up, Carty?
Not much. Dean's got me fired up. Dean hates fun, apparently. Dean thinks if you have the best player of all time, you should trade him. That's Dean's take today. And he's sticking to it.
I mean, they should have traded him if they were getting decent rewards around him. But I think your take is right.
No
if they're not going to trade him.
Like, you would need 4 actual established young cost-controlled major league players to be worth Ohtani. No amount of
I like what they did. Yeah, the problem is they're probably going to lose him. But I like what they did. Just go all in and, just take a home run swing. I'm with you on this for the most part. But hey, we don't have time for that. We got Squirrel as well. Squirrel, I think, won another 4 tournaments since the last time I saw him.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I had a great start to the MMA night on Saturday. It was one of those things I knew it wasn't going to last. So MMA, you never want to stack fights unless it's the last fight of the night. And I accidentally stacked. I don't know how. I accidentally stacked for the first fight of the night. So through and then every other fighter in that lineup won. So through 6 fights, instead of winning $300,000, I'm like, this looks beautiful, but I know it's not going to last because so I had a losing fighter in the lineup. So that lineup actually ended up cashing, which was nice. Didn't win anything, but I did win the FanDuel sponsor of the show live final seat that night.
There we go.
Yeah, so that worked out really well. And actually, I lost the DraftKings seat on the last at bats of it could possibly get me. The guy had to hit a home run, right? I think it was Ryan McMahon. Had to hit a home run, and I'm watching the game, well, as long as he doesn't, I was actually trying to bet $100 on him to hit a home run. And I couldn't get it down. And then he just hit a line drive 6 inches over the wall.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. But then I won the FanDuel seat in a similar fashion. So
there you go. All right. Well, clearly you have been on a tear. So of course we want to get your takes here on what we're doing with this tournament. By the way, I like what Robin says in the chat. I personally think Carty is competent. It's just such a backhanded compliment. It's he's competent. He'll do. He's fine. No, we love Carty. We always love your takes, man. We got to talk about weather. I feel like last time I was on a show, or maybe it was over the weekend, I was certain that the 2 to 3 hour late start in St. Louis was going to be fine. And I said, don't stress, just play the game. Because when I feel confident in things, I just come out and say it. But also when I don't know what the hell is going to happen, I just come out and say it. I don't know what's going to happen in Colorado. There's a flood watch. There's probably going to be heavy thunderstorms. It is probably going to happen during the game.
Can you play baseball in a flood and a thunderstorm? Does that? It is
very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult to do. Yeah. I think the likely outcome is that they figure out some way to play. I don't entirely know how. I don't exactly know when the rain's going to move in or if it's going to move out. I just straight up don't know what the hell is going to happen in Colorado. And that's it. I don't want to sit here and pretend I know things I don't. I realize it's the best spot of the night. So if you want to play that in tournaments, go for it. Legitimately go for it. I would not put all my dollars in that one. I would not put all my eggs in that one basket, but absolutely go for it. That's Like for now, that's all I've got. And maybe before the game, I'll have a better idea. But I realized that then like all of the games are done. So that doesn't really help a whole hell of a lot. Squirrel, you got anything to add?
No, I'll just I'll add. I think the same thing I said last time was weather. Is that you need two things to go right in a situation like this. If you're playing San Diego, is you need the game to play, and then you need San Diego to be like the highest scoring team of the night or like the best stack of the night. And that usually one of those things is going to go wrong. So I tend to go way underweight situations like this. I also on Saturday when I was like winning that live final seat, we had like a terrible storm and a tree fell down on the house, like 2 houses down. It absolutely destroyed it. When like tree went through the first floor, like through the roof, through the second floor, like onto the main floor of like a brick house. I've never seen anything like this.
Shit. Yeah.
So I'm like hesitant to like mess with Mother Nature.
You're scared of weather right now, is what you're saying. Yeah. There was a serious windstorm through your area over the weekend. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive into the content side of things for now. Ryan says Kevin Roth is the best and only meteorologist in the DFS space. That's right. I am number one and only. Let's just get right into the content. We'll talk about some pitchers. I will give you an update at the end of the show. If anything looks different, I don't see why it would, to be honest with you. Carty, what are we doing here pitcher-wise in cash in particular?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting pitcher slate because there's nobody on this slate that's actually a good play. We have good pitchers on this slate and we have good matchups on this slate, but they really don't exist concurrently. There's a whole bunch of guys that just project very similarly in terms of points, and they project very similarly in terms of ownership, and it's a whole lot of like whatever. So for me in cash, I'm just going to go to the cheap end, and I'm going to play those guys. That means Nick Pivetta is kind of my guy today. Even though it's all bunched up, the bet does have him projected as the second best guy straight up today. There's really only like two good pitching environments today when you consider park and weather. It's San Francisco and it's Seattle. And he's in Seattle. He's against this Seattle offense that is pretty good, but is also very strikeout heavy, the version of the lineup that they're rolling out today. And it's good pitching weather. It's a pitcher's park. It's a big park upgrade for him. He's been really good lately. He's really cheap. He's 6.6 on DK. He's 8K on FanDuel. I think he's my cash guy. And then who you're pairing him with on DK, it's probably Chris Bassett just because he's one of the other guys on the cheap end. I don't like him quite as much as I like Morton or Kirby or Burns or Glasnow or whoever. But the matchup's okay. Toronto's one of the only other games where the weather is not balls hot. It's 73 degrees there. It's the second coldest game on the slate. And, he's facing a Baltimore offense that's a little overrated. And the price is right. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. In GPPs,
Carty,
you could
real quick. Can I cut you off here? I'm interested if you're saving money so that you can go to players in the Colorado game, like so that you can play San Diego guys.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it because San Diego is really good. And in cash, if it's any bit of safe, I want them. But there are other guys, expensive guys you can go to. Like Atlanta is really good today. Houston is really good today. Atlanta especially is very expensive. So even if cores weren't on this slate, I'd still be considering this approach just because in terms of projection, you're really not getting anything by going to one of these other guys. So just spend it on whatever you can spend it on.
Okay.
And then in GPPs, in GPPs, mix it up. All the other guys are fine. None of them are actually good or great. You have Morton, you have Kirby, you have Burns, you have Glasnow. Mix them in. If you want to throw a dart at like a Marcus Stroman, I'm okay with that. But otherwise, that's kind of pitching in my opinion.
Okay, very good. Let's kick it to Squirrel here, and I want your thoughts here in GPPs in particular.
Sure. So I think what Carty said is exactly right for cash. I think like Nick Pivetta is underpriced, and you probably want the savings, so you're going to be going with Nick Pivetta. But that makes me not like him for tournaments at all. Like I'm going to try to go maybe half the field on Nick Pivetta. I'm actually I wrote up I think Seattle is one of my favorite stacks, just because like he doesn't project that well. Like you want your like highest owned pitcher in tournaments to be a guy with like huge upside that like is projecting much better than other people, even if it comes at a price. Like Nick Pivetta is just like good point per dollar, which is great for cash, like not that great for tournaments. So I'm going to go way underweight. And then if he like burns me, no pun intended, if he burns me, then it's like just not my night, right? So like I'm going to be overweight like Corbin Burns. I'm going to be overweight like Tyler Glass now, guys that have high upside. And then I think Andrew Abbott is going to be really, really underowned because it's almost the opposite situation. Pivetta, like Abbott has some upside, but he's just not like he's priced a little bit too high for like what his median outcome would be. And that's going to result in people having him in like single digit ownership when he's got just as much upside as any other pitchers on the slate.
Okay. And then specifically on FanDuel, you get one pitcher there. Is it that same core of guys, or is there a different pricing tier where you're interested somewhere else?
Actually, so on FanDuel, actually, I think it's DraftKings. Like George Kirby is actually kind of in the pool of guys because he's much better priced on DraftKings relative to the other pitchers. Like you're getting a bigger discount on Kirby on DraftKings, and that actually makes him kind of slide in as a nice like SP2 or like an SP1 if you're spending way up on hitters and going with a cheaper pitcher. It's pretty much the same pool on FanDuel. Glasnow, Burns, Charlie Morton. I'm going over the field on Abbott. Little bit of like a sprinkle of Bassett, a little bit of Kyle Gibson, and a little bit of Ryan Nelson.
Okay, very good. Hey, by the way, that was FanDuel. Make sure you sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $5, get $100 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Also, we've got the FanDuel Single Entry Series. That is still ongoing. It is the RotoGrinders sponsored FanDuel Single Entry Series. Especially at the start of the week, you're essentially accumulating or averaging your scores throughout the week. So you want to get in at the start of the week. That way you can have, all your scores, highest points, not just for the day wins, but also through the end of the week. You tally up the points. So make sure you're doing that. It's the right thing to do. Let's talk stacks and Squirrel. I guess we probably start in Colorado, but we need to know what else we like.
Yeah. So Colorado is or San Diego playing in Colorado is the top stack by any numbers you look at, throwing out the fact that every player in that game might get a 0 because like there's flash flood warning. So I'm going under the weight on San Diego. I'm playing some San Diego stacks in like the large field GPPs, like the FanDuel squeeze where it's like a $4 or $9 tournament. I'm okay playing some San Diego lineups, but like you said, I don't want to put all my money in that basket, right? Mm-hmm. So the teams that I'm pivoting most to, probably Houston. Atlanta projects a little bit better, but they're super pricey, and like particularly on DraftKings, that's making an impact with the lineups. It's just really hard to get a full Atlanta stack. So I'm going to Houston. I've got a lot of Milwaukee, and then I like Seattle. Going against Nick Pivetta. Like if Seattle ends up having a great offensive game, even if it's against the bullpen, like you're getting a big ownership kind of leverage play there, just because they're going to go underowned because Pivetta is like priced too low. That's not really going to affect the outcome of the game. So I like Seattle as like my favorite, like sneaky stack or contrarian stack. But really it's Milwaukee and Houston, probably my two highest owned, highest projected stacks.
Okay, very good. Carty, where are you moving in the nod of agreement here?
Yeah, no, I like that train of thought because obviously Coors is going to be super chalky at Padres at least. And for good reason. They're awesome. You're going to play them in cash if Roth gives you okay with weather, but it's baseball. Anything can happen. They don't project that much better than everyone else. The bat really likes Houston and Milwaukee, especially from a price considered standpoint, ownership considered standpoint. And I don't hate the Mariners thing. They're really cheap and you get tons of leverage off Pivetta. So I think that's interesting. The other guys I think I would throw in, I mentioned Atlanta being super expensive. I think that's going to probably drive their ownership down a little bit. So if you can find ways to make Atlanta stacks work, I do really like Atlanta tonight. Mm-hmm. And I think the Rays and the Rockies are also really interesting.
Okay. Very good, guys. Let's go around the horn a little position by position. We're going to take some questions as well, give you some home run calls. Make sure you're hanging out with us in the RotoGrinders Discord. And hit a little thumbs up on the YouTube. It's just a little thumbs up. That's all you got to do. AJ Pollock and somebody else to the Giants. Do we care?
And somebody else.
And
that is Mark
and
McVay.
Candelario. Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that guy's name. Candelario to the Cubs. Do we care?
I mean, it's kind of an interesting move, but I mean, he's an okay guy, you know. For today, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, then we'll leave it at that. All right, let's go around the horn. Carty, start us off with a little catcher talk, if you don't mind, sir.
Yep. So, in cash, assuming we get the okay on San Diego, Gary Sanchez is clearly the top guy, and he's underpriced. He's 3.7. He's in cores. He's against a terrible lefty in Austin Gomber. You don't need to overthink it. If you can't play Sanchez, you decide I don't want to take the risk. You probably play Yainer Diaz for Houston instead. The Astros are facing Cindergaard. He is not good at pitching anymore. He's also super easy to steal on. So Squirrel likes him. I like him. Houston's guys are going to be really good today. I like Elias Diaz a lot as a one-off. I like him in the Colorado stacks. I like William Contreras as a one-off. I like him in the Brewer stacks. That's kind of catcher. And Cal Raleigh certainly as a one-off or in your Seattle stacks against Pivetta.
Squirrel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, both Seattle catchers, I think they've got both Cal Raleigh and Tommy Murphy are in the lineup. So, like, both Seattle catchers, and then Victor Caratini, I think, if you're looking for a value guy with Milwaukee.
Okay, first base.
First base, so Matt Olson, as always, like, is the guy that can break any slate. He's just expensive, like much easier to get him on Fanduel than on DraftKings. Anthony Santander, I like Carlos Santana with Milwaukee in the Milwaukee stacks, and then a pair of Rays, Luke Raley and Yandy Diaz.
Carty, your thoughts at first?
First is kind of one of these spots that's like all over the place today. Like, I don't think there's like one guy you have to get. If you want to go up and pay for Olsen in tournaments, great. Ohtani on DK, where he qualifies at first, I think is really good today. Going to have fairly low ownership because of Morton. But then you have plenty of like mid-range and cheap guys that you can play. Like you have Cronenworth in San Diego. You have Montero on the other side of that game. You have Carlos Santana, like Squirrel mentioned. You have Josh Bell. You have Lamont Wade. Over on FanDuel, I don't even mind if you play a catcher because first base is so like kind of weird and kind of weak today. Like you can play Gary Sanchez. You can play William Contreras. I have no problem doing that on FanDuel today.
Okay. That brings us to second base, I do believe, Carty.
Yep. Brendan Rodgers activated off the IL by the Rockies today. It looked like he was going to be out for the year, and he's back. He's 2.5 on FanDuel, and he's one of the better guys on the slate. So I like Rodgers quite a bit in cash. On DK, he's even cheaper. He's 2.4, which on DK is just crazy. So he's definitely your cash guy, and then you're just figuring out like how you're going to be different in tournaments. Like Altuve is awesome in those Houston stacks. Albies in those Atlanta stacks. Brandon Lau as a one-off or in those Tampa Bay stacks. Like that's what you're doing at second, I think.
Squirrel, what are you doing at second?
Yeah, literally the last three guys that Carty mentioned. Jose Altuve, Ozzy Albies, and Brandon Lau. Just because I'm overweight those stacks as a result of being underweight the San Diego and Colorado. This is a game that this is a position that Colorado game is really going to impact. Because Ha-Seong Kim is leading off for San Diego. He's second base eligible. Jake Cronenworth is hitting 6 for San Diego. He's second base eligible. And then Ryan McMahon is one of Colorado's best hitters on the other side of the game. So if you think that game's going to play, or if you have confidence in it and you're okay rolling the dice on the weather, then there's a good chance you're getting either a Padre or a Rocky. But I don't want to risk it that much, so I'm probably playing a lot more of Altuve, Albies, and Brandon Lau.
Okay, how about third base?
Third base also somewhat affected by that that game because Manny Machado is hitting cleanup for San Diego, and then Ha-Seong Kim is third base eligible as well on FanDuel. I'm playing a lot more Elly De La Cruz because he's cheaper than both of those guys, and he's got the upside and comes without the weather risk. Austin Riley, and then Rafael Devers is going to be super underowned. But he's obviously, he's facing George Kirby. He's a decent pitcher, but there's no reason like Devers still can't break the slate. I mean, he's one of those guys can absolutely break it. And then in terms of value pieces, maybe Gabriel Arias with Cleveland and Matthew Batten with San Diego.
Okay. Carty, what are you doing at third?
In cash, you're just playing Machado, assuming we can do that. Otherwise, I like Jose Ramirez a lot. I like Austin Riley a lot. Ryan McMahon in your Colorado stacks, Bregman in your Houston stacks. Third is there's not a lot of cheap stuff. Did you mention Suarez, Squirrel?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I like Eugenio Suarez, especially on DK. He's 3-2, always in play for a home run, and you get that leverage off of Pivetta, and you get the really cheap price tag. So I think he's pretty awesome.
Okay, shortstop, Carty.
Once again, in cores, the top guy, Xander Bogaerts hitting 5th against Gomber. If you can get to him, if you're playing the game, great. On FanDuel, you also have Ha-Sung Kim, who's shortstop eligible, so you can play either one of those guys. But then you have Jeremy Pena, who has no business hitting second for the Houston Astros at this point with everybody that they have back and healthy, but there he is hitting second for the Houston Astros. So Jeremy Pena, 2.6 on FanDuel, even 4.3 on DK isn't terrible. And he's facing Cindergaard, chance for a steal, chance for hits, chance for runs, chance for everything. So I like Pena a lot, especially on FanDuel at that price. I think he's probably even just your cash guy, regardless of what you're doing with cores. You do have Ezekiel Tovar hitting second in cores for the Rockies, who I like. You have Willie Adames, who I think is awesome as a one-off or in your Milwaukee stacks. Wander Franco, same thing with Tampa Bay. And I think that is shortstop.
Okay, Squirrel, your thoughts at short?
Yeah, I'm playing a lot of Ellie De La Cruz just because I'm saving money, not spending up for the Padres. Yeah, Jeremy Pena is like one of the most underpriced guys on both sites. Yeah, hitting second. I had totally forgotten about the Noah Syndergaard stolen base thing today. I don't know if Carty, do you know off the top of your head like how that's holding up this year compared to previous years? Like, is he still as easy to steal on?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he still is. Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering how the new rules were impacting him as well, like relative to the other pitchers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, the Astros could be racking up some stolen bases. And then I like Wander Franco at shortstop as well with Tampa Bay.
Okay, great. That brings us to the outfield. Squirrel, what do we got there? We have still 24 minutes or something ridiculous. So take your time.
So it's a loaded position today, as it always is, it seems like, but there is some weather risk, right? Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto are going to be two of the higher projected guys because they're in Coors Field. But if that game doesn't play, you're obviously not going to have a good lineup. So I like pivoting to some of the other highly projected guys. Got a lot of Ronald Acuna, got a lot of Christian Yelich, Kyle Tucker, and then Aaron Judge is a one-off. People aren't going to be playing him, but I think he just hit a home run, like his first home run since coming back. So, nothing wrong with Aaron Judge. Definitely a guy that can break the slate. Playing a good amount of Julio Rodriguez, Yordan Alvarez, and Shohei Ohtani. Okay,
Carty, your thoughts?
Yeah, the San Diego guys, obviously. Tatis, Soto, Grisham, great. Kyle Tucker for Houston because we love Houston. Seiya Suzuki is way too cheap on both sites. I like him a lot as a cash play, as a value play. Ohtani's fantastic. Acuna is fantastic. It's really kind of just a mix of like spend up for the good guys, find some cheaper guys, especially if you're going the cheap pitching route in cash. You can afford a lot of these expensive outfielders. You probably only need to punt one of these spots. Christian Yelich in those Milwaukee stacks is great, especially on FanDuel, and that's kind of all you need to do.
Okay, very good. Guys, we need some home run picks. T from LOC says, how many likes until we get Carty to undo one more button there? I do feel this is one more button than you usually have, Carty. I feel like usually there's one fewer there. Getting conservative.
On shows, it's usually 2 buttons. When I'm out and about town, it's 3 or 4. But, you got to be professional.
Okay. All right, that's what it is. All right, let's do some home run picks. Squirrel, what do you have for me?
I'll go with Cal Riley. I wrote him up today, and then also go with same game Tristan Casas with Boston.
Very good. I should add that the Spidey bomb number 1 is Tristan Mikasa Sukasas. 2 is Gunnar Henderson. 3 at the bottom, as you see, is Brandon Lau. Carty, you got any good bets for us?
Yeah, so for DFS, the top guy is Fernando Tatis. He projects for a pretty crazy home run projection today. Off the radar, the bat likes Eugenio Suarez quite a bit. In terms of betting, best bet today is Ryan Mountcastle plus 825 over at Bet365. And if you want somebody a little more namey, Corbin Carroll is plus 925 today at Bet365, and he projects for good value.
Okay. Very good. Let's dive into the QQs. As I mentioned, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit us with a little thumbs up. It's free content. We want to keep it free. Our sponsor wants to see eyeballs and likes and engagement and all that. So hit us with a little thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. I'm going to take some of your questions in YouTube, but I'm going to start in the RotoGrinders Discord because that's where the cool kids hang out. Let's see what we got here. ProShare says, hey, I missed the beginning. Who did Squirrel like in DK for a SP2 if I'm fading Pavetta?
I like paying up for Tyler Glass now because I think he's one of the few pitchers who can really break the slate. I think if you're trying to go a little bit cheaper, I think you can go Chris Bassett. He's pretty underpriced. George Kirby is like a really good price on DraftKings as well. If you really need to go cheap, I think you can go Kyle Gibson, but I don't love it.
Okay. NBA DFS says, will we have a better idea at 8 if the Coors game will play? I say that because there's a fairly easy pivot there to the Astros. I'll have a slightly better idea. Yeah. I don't know if I'll know, but the closer we get, the better idea I will have. We'll go to Falcor, FanDuel single entry. Carty, Pavetta or Nelson at pitcher? This is FanDuel single entry. Nelson will get me Yelich and Alvarez over Frelick and Arozarena.
I mean, Pavetta is going to be fairly popular today. I think you still just play him. I mean, it's going to depend on the rest of your lineup, but I really am not a big, who was it, Nelson? Like, I don't think you're going down to someone like that on FanDuel. I just play Pavetta.
Okay, great. Fic Nostrum says, DK GPP Squirrel, what are your thoughts on a Rengifo, Ohtani, Renfro mini stack? They project really well, and it's some leverage on Morton.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And like the Angels are probably going to be under-owned, and they've already got the Dean Mush. So
yes,
can't do better than that.
Okay, excellent. Amateur says, hey, gentlemen, I listen religiously, wondering if for single entry DK GPPs, you could talk about your priority plays for Atlanta and Tampa Bay, especially with the new pitchers, focusing on the Tampa Bay outfield, like Lau versus Rayleigh. Carty, do you want to talk about some of your favorites there in Atlanta and Tampa Bay?
Well, may come as a surprise, but my favorite Atlanta outfielder is Ronald Acuna Jr. He's pretty good at baseball. I mean, yeah, you can play other Atlanta guys, but Harris is fine. Rosario's fine. Ozuna's fine. It depends on context. Like if you can get Acuna, do it. Like he's awesome.
Yeah, sure. And then anyone on Tampa Bay that you think stands out that, let's say you're stacking Tampa Bay, like these are the 2 or 3 dudes that you feel you definitely should have.
Yeah, it's Wander Franco, Brandon Lau, and Arozarena, let's say, would be the 3 that I really want. And I'd probably throw Yandy Diaz in there too.
Okay, very good. Let's jump to Steve's question. What up, Steve? Producer extraordinaire says, this is for both Carty and Squirrel. Squirrel, we'll start with you. For the FanDuel single entry series, is Pavetta a good move? And if not, who is your favorite pitcher for a single entry lineup? That is the RotoGrinders sponsored FanDuel single entry series, I should add. Squirrel, who do you like?
So I would try to pivot off Pavetta, and I maybe go with like Tyler Glass now if you can, like pay up, or Andrew Abbott is going to have like single digit ownership.
Okay, great. Carter, you said you were okay with the chalkiness of Pavetta there on FanDuel?
I mean, yeah, you can. It depends on the rest of your lineup. Like Pavetta is going to be pretty popular. If you want to play one of the other aces, like go for it. On FanDuel, you're not really getting that discount on Bassett that you're getting on DK. So I think you probably just play like Glass now or Burns or Morton or Kirby, and just, I mean, they're all basically the same today. Play one of them.
Yeah. Okay, great. Rocky Raccoon says, "Hey, Cartwheel." It's okay. He's always got something. Hey, Cartwheel, what do you think of the Washington Natty Lights in a FanDuel GPP? Terrible matchup, but holy popsicle sticks, are those bad daddies cheap? That is just an epic question.
That might be the
Rocky Raccoon.
best team nickname I've ever heard in my entire life. The Washington Natty Lights it's just perfect in every conceivable way. It makes perfect sense.
Man,
that
good
being
stuff.
said, I do not think I have any interest in Natty Light tonight.
Okay, that's fair. Most nights we do not want Natty Light. It ain't college anymore. Dan Jan says, France versus Cleveland, good? Squirrel, I don't understand the question, but hopefully you do. France versus Cleveland, good?
Wait, tie France?
I mean,
Probably
is there
JP
another?
France.
Oh,
On the
Oh,
slate
JP
tonight.
France.
Oh.
He's not on my radar, to be honest. Yeah, so like that's how off my radar he is. I don't think I have any even in my like 150 set. Just not getting there.
Okay. I'm jumping into the YouTube chat. We still have 15 minutes. That's a lot of time. AJ says, "Hey, my wife is going to the Jays game. Jays stack is going to break the slate. You got to stack them if someone's going, right? Is that's the rule?
The rule.
That's the rule. Got to do
You
it.
can play
So,
Bassett
all right.
instead, and then just root for a no hitter.
There you go. Yeah, that's one way you could go. That's a lot less fun, though, honestly. Chad says, "Your favorite two pitchers in DK Cash Carty," kind of a review here. It was two cheaper guys. Was it Pavetta and somebody else?
Yeah, it's definitely Pavetta, and I probably pair him with Bassett.
Okay, very good. Your thoughts on a Boston stack, Squirrel? Eric Johnson says, on FanDuel, what's your interest level in a Boston stack?
I think I'm way over the field on Boston stacks actually, because it's not a night where there's some like super bad offense. Like Boston is maybe it might have one of the lower implied run totals on the slate, or maybe even the lowest, but they still are projecting decently with decent power. So yeah, they'll have like very small ownership. I'm way over the field.
Great. All right. Let's see. DKGPP, Carty, I'm going to you here. Glass now and Weimer or Burns and Julks?
It's pretty similar. I'd probably go Burns and Julks just because you legitimately have like 4 stolen base upside against Noah Cindergaard. So Julks could legitimately get like 15 or 20 points just from stolen bases. Like that's the upside there.
Okay. We'll go to Jeff Morgan's question. Your favorite cheap bat that is not named Pena. He didn't specify site, but Squirrel, you got an answer for him? Your favorite cheap bat not named Pena?
Yeah, actually, I'd stay at the same position, go Bryce Terang. He's probably talking about FanDuel because I think he's like.
It's got to be FanDuel, yeah, because Pena's so cheap there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I would like pivot down to Bryce Terang. I think he's like $300 cheaper. He's hitting 8th, which isn't great. But yeah, it still projects pretty decently well. He's been hitting okay, and he's cheaper. So.
Okay. My guy Butthole Jenkins says, Carty, who is your feel it in your plums play of the night? Who do you feel it in your plums is a must play tonight?
Feel it in my plums must play tonight. Give me Chris Bassett on DK because I don't think, even though he's cheap, I think people who want to play a cheap guy are going to go to Pavetta, and then they're going to take one of the expensive guys with him. I don't think you're going to see as much ownership on Bassett as you should tonight.
Okay, very good. Hey, you talked about the Julks and the stolen base upside against Cindergaard. Carty, are there any stolen base props? I don't know if you have this available or on hand that you like for the Astros. What's that?
Let me take a look. The problem is that like Vegas is like super up on Cindergaard. Like last year, the first half of the year, you could make so much money betting stolen base props against Cindergaard, and they have hard adjusted.
Gotcha.
Best stolen base props today are actually not Astros.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So the odds just not there. All right. Good to know. Beaner says, Squirrel, what are your thoughts on Gibson in a FanDuel GPP?
I've got some of them on DraftKings. I think I have about 3% Kyle Gibson. Actually, my 150 set has one Kyle Gibson lineup. I have a 30, a contest admin has 30 entries and has one Kyle Gibson lineup. He's a little bit better as a SP2 pivot on DraftKings, but I still have like single digit ownership. I mean, it's not a good matchup.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. If you got 100 entries, go for it. But otherwise, maybe trim that a bit. Dan Jan says, hey, what about Irvin? Milwaukee isn't that good. Squirrel, I'm going to give this to you. What about Irvin? Milwaukee isn't that good.
Yeah, it's almost the same exact reply that he just gave to Kyle Gibson. Like Irvin's cheap. You never know what's going to happen, but it's not a great matchup. I mean, I think the hitting weather in the DC area feels pretty good. So that might be something against like a strike against Irvin. So yeah, almost just repeat what I said with Kyle. Like he's cheap. It's gonna be low owned, but it's not a great matchup. So I don't mind if you're really trying to spend up at hitter. Like sure, pivot, but yeah,
not a focal point.
Yeah, low chances of success. But.
Okay, very good. Let's see. You're going to jump back into the old YouTube here. Lil Tunchi says, Carty, can we get a pinch hit risk for Batten? Does it go down given that Kim is DH and he is first base?
I would think. I mean, it's always really high for him. I don't think that dynamic's going to change it that much. The bat has 43%, although it doesn't account that granularly for that sort of thing, with Kim and all that.
Okay. Ooh. Let's see. Thoughts on a Mariner stack, Carty?
Yeah, I mean, Pavetta's going to be popular. Squirrel mentioned it earlier. We've talked about it throughout. Like from a straight, points value perspective, they're not the best, but when you consider that they're pretty cheap, you get leverage. I think a Mariner stack is pretty good tonight.
Okay. My guy Eric Beim4 in the chat says, hey, in tournaments, we're talking big dollar stuff here, Squirrel. Start, bench, cut, Acuna, Jordan, Ohtani. Like, where are we ranking these guys if you're maybe only spending up for one?
I would start Acuna.
Okay.
He can just get points so many different ways. And then I've got Alvarez and Ohtani projected about the same. I would probably go Alvarez though, because I think there's like more upside. Like Ohtani might hit a home run, but like Alvarez might hit a grand slam.
Okay. Also, make sure you check out Spike Week. This is basically, if you like what RotoGrinders does for DFS, Spike Week is kind of the equivalent for best ball. So make sure you're checking out Spike Week, spikeweek.com. Shout out to my guy, Eric, who is kind of manning the ship over there. We'll go to Easy E. I really like the Orioles tonight, Carty. Any of those guys on your radar? Carty, got any Orioles on your radar?
I'm not really big on the Orioles tonight. Like I like Bassett. I'd rather play him than Orioles.
Okay. Favorite DK single entry stack? I'll let you both answer this one. Carty, you can go first. Favorite DK single entry stack?
Give me Houston.
Okay. Yeah. Squirrel?
I'll go Seattle.
Okay. Excellent. Paul Hauser says, Squirrel, this is a DK GPP question. Alvarez or Judge as a one-off?
So one-off? It's pretty close. I mean, I think I've got Alvarez projected much better. Judge is going to be super low owned, and like we know, Aaron Judge can hit like 2-3 home runs. So as a one-off, I might actually go for Aaron Judge.
Okay,
like I'm more likely
any
to
of
be
that
a
because
Houston stack, but
okay. I had two screaming children. I heard none of that, but
Okay.
I'm gonna nod and pretend that was sound
He was
advice.
brilliant.
Very good.
yeah,
He was brilliant. I'm sure of it. Let's see. Are the Angels projected as the lowest owned stack? Carty, are the Angels the lowest owned, or are they at least low owned? Are you frozen, or are you just stoic? Okay, I think he's.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're just. Yeah, I can hear you. Just frozen on screen. Are the Angels projected
Okay,
as
I
the
don't know
lowest
what's
owned
going
stack?
on.
Carty?
Let me
was
take
that?
a quick look.
Yeah.
I can take it. I think it's going to be Washington is the lowest owned.
Yep.
There you go.
Either Washington or San Francisco. Like the lineup's not out yet. I think for the Giants. That
Okay.
always hurts things a little bit.
All right. Let's see here. The good news, Carty, is it's a decent picture of you as far as like freeze frames go. Usually it's much less flattering. We'll go to a side. FanDuel Cash Squirrel 3v3 Riley Yelich Abrams or Bregman Jordan Suzuki.
The first one, a Yelich Abrams, and I like the first hitter too. Was it you wrote on?
It was Yelich. It was Riley, Yelich, Abrams versus Bregman, Jordan, Suzuki.
Yeah, Yelich, Riley, Abrams.
Okay, very good. Would you stack Washington with the weather squirrel?
Yeah, it's kind of a long shot. Like I think in my 150 set, I think I have some Washington stacks. I'm not like in like higher dollar stuff. Probably not going there.
Great. Let's see here. If Colorado delays, is there enough info to know if that's good or bad for pitchers and bats? Just as a general rule, a late start is good because it shows that they want to play. But there is one forecast model in particular that keeps storms around till like 11 midnight. It just doesn't let up. There's another one that does clear it out. And that's why I'm just straight up telling you, I don't know. It wouldn't fully shock me if they just play on time and nothing happens. And it wouldn't fully shock me if it rains for 6 hours and they postpone. Like I think the likely outcome is somewhere in between that range, but I do not know. And I wish I had better for you. And I wish that we weren't going to do the same thing tomorrow and the next day, but we are because it's going to storm in Colorado again.
When you said it might rain to like 11, is that 11 local time or 11
Yeah,
Eastern?
Local time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's like 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern.
Yeah. All right, let's see where we're at here. Did we get Cartwheel back? What up, Carty?
Hey, I don't know what just happened, but I think I'm back.
Okay, he's back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's see what we got here. We got about 5 minutes until we hit the lock here. Fanduel single entry. Squirrel, you want Adames Jolks or Pena Frelick? And then in parentheses, Houston is a part of a mini stack. Brewers would be one off.
So I'd go with Houston then. The Pena one.
Okay. Alex says, hey, Carty, who is the cheapest pitcher you would play in a DK tournament? I love that question.
I mean, it's clearly Pavetta, but you need to play him in the right lineup. Aside from him, I think it's Bassett.
Okay.
And if you really had to, Kyle Gibson, but I don't think you need to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. It's you do free content and you open it up for everybody in the YouTube chat, and then you're just like the two asses just outweigh all of the kind, nice people like pretty quick. They're trying, man. All right, let's see what else we got. Any red stacks tonight? Anybody? Red stacks tonight? Anyone?
Yeah, they're not super on my radar.
I'm playing a lot of LA De La Cruz. It was Reds.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm playing a good amount of Cincinnati.
Okay, very good. FanDuel says, I've got 3,400 in the util, and Squirrel, I'm going to give this to you. This is FanDuel, 3,400 in the util. Could you give me a play, please? So anybody at 3,400 or less. I
think the highest projected guy I've got is Jeremy Pena, and he's 2,600, so like way below that 3,400 threshold. Maybe Brandon Lau as well.
Okay. Generic says single entry, avoid the Padres. Like I don't know is the truth. And that's what I'm trying to communicate as best I can is I don't know. If you're okay with some risk, then go for it. If you don't want any risk, then pivot to anywhere else. Mark says, hey, how many, if they start in Colorado, how many innings before? I don't know. Like I straight up don't know what's going to happen in Colorado yet. Maybe I'll know before first pitch, but right now I just straight up don't know. Boss Bro says your favorite Seattle bat, Squirrel. You said you like stacking Seattle. Who are some of your favorites?
So I think Cal Raleigh, and he fits in at catcher. Tommy Murphy, also a catcher. And then let's see who else I've got highly projected. I know I'll have Julio Rodriguez and Teoscar Hernandez as well. It's pretty highly projected. And then Eugenio Suarez and JP Crawford. Okay,
great. Let's see what else we got. Musa says, Carty, like Albies or Altuve?
I prefer Altuve tonight, but they're both good.
Okay. Does Altuve have stolen base upside, or is he like kind of old now and can't swipe a bag? Yeah,
he can still steal bases, and it's Cindergaard.
Nice. Okay. Andrew Martinez says on DK, you want Casas Devers Mini on DK, Squirrel, Casas and Devers?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's going to be super low owned. It still has some upside.
Okay. Generic says, thank you. And then says, was there weather in Washington? I think the weather that someone was referring to in Washington was just generally good hitting weather. It wasn't stormy weather there. But yeah, solid hitting weather for sure. TTID Forever says, do we like any Giants bats tonight? Carty?
Not really. Like Ryan Nelson is one of the weaker pitchers on the slate, but it's cold in San Francisco. It's like 60 degrees in San Francisco tonight. It's a pitcher's park. It's the Giants. I'm not really on them.
Yeah. All right. We are less than a minute until lock. Squirrel, Jolks, or Conforto from Latunchi?
I think I have Jolks.
Amateur Hour says, Carty, Josh Lowe versus Rally, DK single entry GPPs.
I'm going to need you to use their nicknames for me, Roth.
Yeah. We're talking about, the Big Dumper, I think. No, is the Big Dumper Rally or Cal Raley?
I think it's Rally. You were the one who told me that. I never heard of it before you.
Yeah.
I think
the Big Dumper. I mean, okay. We like the Big Dumper. I don't know if Josh Lowe has a nickname or not, but Lau. All right, let's see. Hey, guess what? We hit the lock. We have done the things that we came here to do. Butthole Jenkins says, feel it in your plums and have yourself a good night. And I think that is a good way to end it here. So for Carty, for Squirrel, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. I will update Radar, and I'll let you know what I think of Colorado before first pitch. I'll probably have a better idea by then, but no promises. So we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.